Facing down their opponents in the Conservative establishment, they made a powerful choice founded on fairness, to create a national health service, to provide the people of our country with the care they need, not just the care they can afford. A promise that whoever you are, whatever your background, whatever your income, when you fall ill, you will never have to worry about the bill. I'm here today to defend that promise. And friends, we are in the fight of our lives, not just for the NHS or even for the survival of this government, but for everything we believe in. It is a battle of progressives against reactionaries, patriotism versus nationalism, hope, not hate. Our country is being confronted with choices about who we are and what we stand for. And nowhere do those choices come together more starkly than our National Health Service. The founding principles of the NHS are now contested for the first time in generations. Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse and asks for your credit card before your care. Well, it might be all right for Mr. Moneybags. We know he can afford it. But what about those who can't? We should know by now that man is a con artist, posing as the voice of the people whilst working for the interests of the powerful. And be in no doubt, it's not reform he's offering, it's retreat. He says we can't afford in this century the National Health Service we could afford in the last. Well, if that's the fight Farage wants, I say bring it on. So today I'm not here simply to defend a service, but to uphold our values. A publicly funded, public service, free at the point of use, back on its feet and fit for the future. Those are Labour's values, those are Britain's values, and this is a fight we will win. But friends, we must win another fight too, one against the poison of post-truth politics. At Reform's conference, a discredited doctor claimed that the COVID vaccine gave our royal family cancer. And this man wasn't just some fringe figure, he's Reform's health advisor. Now, these anti-vax lies have consequences. They've led to the return of diseases we thought we'd defeated. Measles, whooping cough, children dying from preventable illness in this, the 21st century. When Farage was asked whether he'd side with medical scientists, he said, "I wouldn't side with anybody." Anti-science, anti-reason, anti-health. Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling. But it's not just the NHS he's coming for, it's the people who make the NHS. If you earn less than 60 grand a year and came from abroad, Farage wants you gone. The doctors, the porters, the nurses, the people who care for us in our hour of need and kept this country going when everything else stopped, tearing families apart, our friends, our neighbours. Last week, I received a letter from a consultant at Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. He spent the last 3 decades here caring for children, but now tells me that Reform's health policy is making him consider leaving our country. He wrote, "Please use your office to ensure that those who've made their lives here in good faith can continue to care for patients without fear." Fear. So as our country's Health and Social Care Secretary, let me address him and his colleagues directly. Thank you. Thank you for your service. Farage says go home. We say you are home. I've got your back. We've got your back. And at the next election, we'll send Farage packing. Thank you. I think they might have heard that at Great Ormond Street Hospital. But here's the challenge we've got. Farage is counting on us to fail. He wants to say, well, if a Labour government can't deliver on the NHS, then it's time to do away with Labour and the NHS. Well, I've got bad news for you, Nigel. Delivering on the NHS is what Labour governments do, and this Labour government is delivering the change we promised. We promised 2 million more appointments, we've delivered 5 million. We promised an extra 1,000 GPs, we've delivered 2,000. We promised to cut waiting lists and they're falling for the first time in 15 years. 6,500 more mental health workers, 7,000 more doctors, 13,000 more nurses and midwives. The cancer diagnosis standard met, GP satisfaction up, waiting times down. That is the difference a Labour government makes, and we're only just getting started. And if you want to see that difference, just look across England's borders. While we're investing in AI, robotic surgery, new digital devices and services, Scotland doesn't even have an NHS app. In Labour-led England, waiting lists are down. In Labour-led Wales, waiting lists are down. But in SNP Scotland, waiting lists are up after 18 years of nationalist failure. Shameful. So whether it's English nationalism with Reform, Scottish nationalism with the SNP, or Welsh nationalism with Plaid, we'll take them all on. With Anas in Scotland and Eluned in Wales, together we'll rebuild our NHS as a great British success story. But none of the progress we've made was inevitable. It's been hard-won in the face of cynicism and timidity. Every major change has been met by a chorus of caution. Slow down. Don't rush into it. It's all too difficult. Tomorrow, we're reforming general practice, so patients can request appointments online at any point during the day. Many GPs already offer this service because they've changed with the times. Why shouldn't booking a GP appointment be as easy as booking a delivery, a taxi or a takeaway? And our policy comes alongside £1 billion of extra funding for general practice and 2,000 extra GPs. Yet the BMA threatened to oppose it in 2025. Well, I give you this warning. If we give in to the forces of conservatism, they will turn the NHS into a museum of 20th century healthcare. We will always stand up for the interests of patients, and we won't back down. Now, it's true, we had a dire inheritance at the last general election, the worst since 1945, a broken economy, broken public services, and broken trust in politics itself. But we have an even more powerful inheritance in our party: hope, optimism, courage. It's how the 1945 generation remade Britain after the war. And the test of our generation is to show that same courage, to prove that Britain is still capable of doing big things, giving people hope again. We're not here to manage decline, and my ambition isn't just to recover the NHS, but to rebuild it, to meet the challenges of the 21st century. So let me tell you what our 10-year plan for health means. It means giving patients more power and more choice and more convenience, not just for the many, but not for the many, not just for the many, not just the privileged few. Sorry then. It means putting the power of AI and data in the hands of NHS staff to bring our health service into the digital age. It means the NHS as a neighbourhood health service as much as a national health service, ending the 8 AM scramble with neighbourhood health centres open in the evenings and at weekends, offering face-to-face care to people, not just when they need it, but where they need it. It means early diagnosis and prevention. And modernisation isn't a betrayal of Bevan's legacy, it is its fulfilment. Because as the great man himself said, the NHS must always be changing, improving. And the truth is this: the next 10 years won't just bring a decade's worth of change in healthcare, it will bring centuries worth. Medicine is being transformed before our eyes. We now have genetic tests that can predict a child's risk of illness before they ever fall sick. We're on the brink of vaccines that could one day cure cancer. Weight loss jabs could help us finally defeat obesity. And this isn't just a medical revolution, it's an industrial revolution, a technological revolution, one that will shape the next century of jobs, industry, and public health. And governments across the world face a choice. It's not a choice between stop and go. Change is coming whether we like it or not. No, the real choice is this: will this be a revolution for the few or for the many? Take just one example today: weight loss jabs. The wealthy talk about how they've transformed their health, their confidence, their quality of life. Half the House of Commons tea room talk about the impact they've had. Not in my case. But seriously, what about the millions who can't afford them? This is a return to the days when health was determined by wealth, when some had access to the best care money can buy, while others waited and suffered. And I say never again, because our historic duty and our modern mission is to ensure that the best science, the best healthcare, the best innovations are available, not just to some, but to all. So we will make the UK the home of the next generation of medical breakthroughs, discovered here, developed here, and delivered here on the NHS. Science is changing society, and we've got to change with it, because when the NHS was founded, the average working person lived to just 65. They worked, they retired, and they died shortly after. But today, many of us can now look forward to something our grandparents only ever dreamed of: a life after work. The same is true for so many disabled people, surviving with conditions that would have cut their lives short, thanks to breakthroughs in medical science that allows them to not only survive, but to thrive. But friends, that hope demands action. Because if we want to match longer lives with better lives, then we must build a social care system to meet their needs. We've already begun to make that change. We've delivered the biggest uplift in carers' allowance since the 1970s, an extra £2,000 for family carers because their work is not just loving, it is life-saving. We've installed new home adaptations in the homes of more than 15,000 disabled people, not just giving them new rails and chairlifts, accessible kitchens and bathrooms, but safety, dignity, independence, quality of life. And today, I can announce we will go further, because we will no longer accept a system built on poverty pay and zero-hour insecurity. We will back the first ever fair pay agreement for care workers, not just in law but in practice, starting with £500 million to deliver better pay, terms and conditions for care workers across our country, because the people who care for our loved ones should never have to struggle to care for their own. Conference, let's also be clear about how this change has come about. They're sat down there, Unison and GMB, who stood up for care workers when no one else would. Friends, you can go back to your members and tell them with pride, this is a difference that Labour unions in government make. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And there's someone else who's made a real difference too, who understands the struggle care workers face because she was one. She brought that experience to the cabinet table as the care worker who became our country's Deputy Prime Minister. Angela Rayner, this achievement is yours. Thank you. And we want her back as well. We'll definitely make sure she sees that. We need her back. In conference, I say this to you now, and to every family, every carer, every older and disabled person watching. So long as I hold this office, it will be the mission of this Labour government to build a national care service worthy of the name. And finally, we'll address the inequality in our National Health Service and our nation's health. Because if we fail to invest in public health and prevention, we will face a future where people are living longer lives, but in poorer health. And in the places with the deepest need, the NHS is at its most stretched, and the health of the people at its poorest. In the poorest parts of our country, there are an extra 300 patients per GP. 300. Waiting. Suffering. And the injustice doesn't stop there. A black woman in this country is twice as likely to die in childbirth than a white woman. A child born in Blackpool will now live 10 years fewer than a child born in Hampshire. 10 years. That is the unjust price paid by those who lost the lottery of life. And I stand here today as someone who beat those odds, the exception to the rule, who grew up on a council estate in poverty, had a great state education, made it to one of our country's best universities, and now sits around the cabinet table as part of the most working-class cabinet in British history. But conference, that's not enough. It's not enough for a few to beat the odds. Our party exists to change those odds for everyone. So the challenge of our generation is not just to add years to life, but to add life to those years. So as we rebuild the NHS, we're starting first where the need is greatest. As we reinvest billions saved from cutting waste, as we recruit new GPs, and as we build a new generation of neighbourhood health centres, they won't go to the places with the loudest lobbyists, but to the communities with the deepest deprivation. And we all know the biggest health inequalities are entrenched years before patients walk through the doors of the NHS. They're caused by poverty, poor diets, damp homes, dirty air. So this Labour government is tackling the sickness in our society. We're feeding the next generation with primary school breakfast clubs, so every child starts the day with a full stomach and a hungry mind. We're cutting pollution and cleaning up our air the children breathe to preserve our planet for the future too. We're helping families heat their homes this winter with a warm homes discount that will reach millions more. We're guaranteeing sick pay from day one because no one should have to choose between getting better and getting paid. And with the expansion of free school meals, we are lifting 100,000 children out of poverty. The Tories didn't do it. Reform would undo it. That is the difference a Labour government makes. Now we know some will say the challenges are too great, too expensive, it's too hard. But throughout our history, it has always been Labour, always, that rose to meet the moment. It was Labour that built the NHS out of the ashes of war. It was Labour that saved it in 1997, and it falls to Labour to save it now. We asked our country to put their trust in us, not because the challenges are easy, but precisely because they are hard. A modernisation, it's not a technocratic mission, it is a moral mission, because we do not believe in two-tier healthcare. We do not believe your postcode should determine your prognosis. We do not believe that the size of your wallet should decide the length of your life. We are making the NHS fit for the future, a service that sees people sooner, treats them better, and gives them back more years of life. A service rebuilt in the image of our values, universal, publicly funded, free at the point of use, available to all, owned by all, working for all. Those are my values. They're the NHS's values, and they are Britain's values. Conference. I'll just end with this. The fight against poverty and injustice, reactionaries and nationalists, prejudice and hatred. This is our fight. It has always been our fight. So we will not flinch. We will not fail. We will rebuild our national health and rebuild Britain for our time, for all time, for everyone. Thank you, conference.
Well, that was Health Secretary Wes Streeting there. I mean, there were a few things in the speech. He called Nigel Farage a con artist, which, you know, interesting. He also called him a snake oil salesman of British politics. He said the Labour Party conference, we must win another fight too, one against poison of post-truth politics. He also went on, which I often get quite annoyed when people, and I know there were surveys that say that black people are twice as likely to die during childbirth, but I think sometimes they don't put it into the context of the actual type of people who are working in the NHS. I mean, it's almost a 50-50 split with ethnic minorities and those who are Caucasian. So those who are black are being treated by people who are equally Caucasian or black. So I find that there are other factors I think that need to be taken into account as well. But he highlighted how that reforms policies are making people in the NHS fearful, and he cited that if you earn less than £60,000 a year and come from abroad, Nigel Farage wants you gone. The doctors, the porters, the nurses, he lists the kind of people who would be at risk with Nigel Farage being in power. And he said that tomorrow we're also reforming general practice, and of course this is in reference to the fact that you can have an appointment hopefully at any time of the day. You can book your own appointment rather than it all being shut and the whole triage thing going on. And he said if the government gives into forces of conservatism, they'll turn the NHS into a museum of the 20th century. So very, very interesting speech indeed. Lots going on. But let's go live to the conference now to my co-host and GBNews deputy political commentator Tom Harwood, who is there live. Yeah, Tom, what was your take on what was being said there?
Yeah, it was astonishing, wasn't it? Wes Streeting knows how to work a room. I think that speech was important, not because it was full of policy, because it wasn't, but because it was full of passion. And just hearing these standing ovations that Wes Streeting got, the almost electioneering that was going on there too, particularly looking ahead to elections in Wales and Scotland, and pointing out that Scotland is the only country in Great Britain that has waiting lists for its NHS going up, pointing out that Scotland doesn't even have an NHS app, unlike, of course, the NHS in England. Clearly, this was a very political speech from someone who has been one of the most impressive media performers on the Labour front bench for some time. Despite only getting in as a young MP back in 2015, he has had quite a meteoric rise, and I think people will be listening to that speech, listening to the speech of Shabana Mahmood, and listening perhaps to what Andy Burnham has been saying, not on the main stage of course, but elsewhere around this conference, and thinking, has there already been some sort of leadership election running in the shadows? Because people are talking. People are talking on this conference floor about what comes after Keir Starmer. An astonishing discussion to be having of a Prime Minister who has only been in the job for 14 or 15 months after an astonishing election victory. But that's just what I'm hearing. On the floor of this conference, people are mentioning names like Wes Streeting, like Andy Burnham, like Shabana Mahmood, as people who could potentially replace the Prime Minister in his job if things continue to get worse. And after that performance, I think the Prime Minister will be thinking, gosh, that's a tough act to follow.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people will be looking at that and saying, perhaps Keir Starmer needs to change. Perhaps he needs to be replaced. But I know we'll be hearing his speech later on this afternoon, so it'll be fascinating to see what's going on there. Now, he also said modernising the NHS is not a betrayal of Bevan's legacy. Now, of course, Bevan set up the NHS many years ago. He also said, my ambition isn't just to recover the NHS, but to rebuild it to meet the challenges of the 21st century. Now, that could be music to a lot of people's ears, but of course, the other day he talked about this wonderful idea that you can book an appointment whenever you like, and the BMA came up against that.
Yeah, very often the BMA have been against elements of the NHS. Let's not forget that it was the doctors that were most resistant to the plans for the NHS when it was being created back in 1947 and 1948, back in that Attlee Labour government, when all the hospitals were being nationalised, when the system was being set up. Those that were holding out and protesting against that were indeed the doctors, who didn't want their livelihoods to change. It's one of the reasons why GPs sort of sit in this sort of strange extra part of the healthcare service. They're operators, almost independent companies that then contract with the NHS, but that goes back into ancient history. I think it's not surprising that when there are big reforms, unions like the BMA do often express concerns. But this is where it was interesting. Wes Streeting in that speech spoke up for the unions in the room, saying thank you for being on side, name-checked various Labour unions as he pointed them out in the crowd. He's clearly trying to do two things. Number one, push through reform agendas, and whenever you push through a reform, there are going to be people who are upset. There are going to be vested interests who don't like the way that something is changing. But he's trying to keep those interests on side as he does it. It's a tightrope to walk. I'm not sure he's been entirely successful. Of course, we have had more strikes in the NHS, and some people will be making the point that when he got in and gave enormous pay rises to junior doctors, now known as resident doctors, that in his view would have ended their demands for more and more pay. And yet we have seen those demands continue, despite billions of pounds being spent on higher pay for resident doctors. They have come back and demanded even more, and we've seen more strikes as a consequence. And perhaps one of the arguments there is, has all this extra spending on salaries actually stopped the striking problem? Because to a casual observer it would seem, well, if anything, it's made them ask for more.
And then, of course, he didn't escape the Farage battering because he called him a con artist initially, and then he called him the snake oil salesman of politics. Do you think in this context it was wise again? Because once you start name-calling, you start losing the argument, although he is in an environment where these people will naturally support him, a very supportive environment. From the outside looking in, that just doesn't look good, does it?
Yeah, Nana, I think you pick up on a really important point here. Wes Streeting knows his audience. That speech was not a speech to the country at large. That speech was a speech to the Labour delegates here at the Labour Party conference. And he hit note after note of Labour history, talking about his relationship with the unions, the founding of the NHS, talking about Labour things that in his view are the right way to do things. I mean, if you're thinking, if a cynic was reading through that speech and thinking, oh, what's the ulterior motive here? One might think, well, this is a man with half an eye on winning over the Labour leadership in any potential future contest. Although I think it's important not to over-egg that element. That's clearly what this will be seen as by many, many people. A leadership pitch, in a way, from Wes Streeting, speaking much more to the party than to the country. And so the old favourites went down well in the room. This idea that you'll have to pay for it to have your pulse checked. He had all these sorts of different sort of refrains on the idea that the Reform Party wants to bring in an insurance system of healthcare. Of course, what the Reform Party there would say is that they don't want to bring in a system of insurance like they have in America. Nigel Farage in the past has spoken about a social insurance system like they have in France or in Germany or in the Netherlands, which of course doesn't mean that ordinary people pay out of pocket for healthcare, and they do still have universal healthcare. But this is always one of those attack lines that is used by Labour politicians against Nigel Farage because generally most people listening to the sound bites of politicians don't go down into the weeds of the marginally different healthcare systems across Europe and think that only two healthcare systems exist in the world, the British or the American. And I'm not sure that Nigel Farage is in favour of either one of those two.
All right, Tom, really good. We'll catch up with you in a little bit. That's Tom Harwood, my co-presenter, out there at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. I don't know. I think it's sort of unwise to be, you know, slagging off your opponents, even though you might be talking to your own audience. They need to open their eyes and realise that the wider audience, which is us, are watching and listening. Also, the NHS isn't free, by the way, even though they make it sound like it is. It's at the point of need, whereas we all pay for it, a fortune for it in our taxes. Anyway, stay with us. Loads more to come from the Labour Party conference, but now, right now, your chance to win £104,000 worth of goodies. Here are the details that you need.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this 4-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof lights, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. It's fast approaching 25 minutes after 12 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. More from the Labour Party conference, where the Prime Minister will speak very soon. All of that and more. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Miriam, you can't be serious. Scrapping the triple lock on state pensions? Madness.
Andrew, we just can't carry on pretending. The numbers just don't add up. We've got to be honest with people. We've got to face the facts. That's what people want.
Well, that's what you get on GB News and on Britain's Newsroom. Lively debates, lively conversation.
Britain deserves a newsroom that puts the facts and your voice first, and we're not afraid to hold power to account.
And each other. So join me, Andrew Pearce.
And me, Miriam Gates, for Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
The cost of parking, it's increased by, wait for it, 500%.
And they've done that overnight without consultation, right?
Yeah.
So it now costs £4.85 an hour, right? And what's that going to do? It's going to stop people visiting. And it's not easy to get around York, I have to say. You know, one road in, one road out type thing, congestion around the place. Yes, there's car parking spaces, but goodness me, I mean, this is obviously very, very controversial, and these are the sort of taxes, indirect taxes, that come on all of us. It's now going to cost us so much money just to get there, just to see there. Tell us more.
That's right, Eamon, and the City of York Council have introduced this to try and reduce congestion, to try and get more people on buses, more people cycling to go shopping. But of course, that infrastructure hasn't been put in place. There's not been extra buses put on. There's not been extra bike racks for people to park. And certainly when you're doing a shop, a lot of the shops here are greengrocers, butchers. How are you going to carry all that on a bike? I'd like to introduce you to Karen now. She's just come to pay for parking, expecting that it was going to be 80p. How do you feel when you've just seen this price rise today?
I am really annoyed. I've come out with enough money to pay basically for 2 hours. I'm having my hair done, which then, knowing now that this is, say, triple what it would have been, then my online payment isn't working. So I'm effectively not able to pay, which is really, really, really annoying.
GB News, the People's Channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. This is GB News. I'm Nana Akua. Now, speaking just minutes ago at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, Health Secretary Wes Streeting had some choice words for Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling. Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse and asks for your credit card before your care. We should know by now that man is a con artist. When Farage was asked whether he'd side with medical scientists, he said, "I wouldn't side with anybody." Anti-science, anti-reason, anti-health. Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling.
Well, all eyes are now on the Prime Minister. Sir Keir Starmer will take to the stage in the next hour, so do not leave your seat. Get yourself a cup of tea and cake. It's going to be a most interesting ride. But joining us now is GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. What is it with this obsession with Nigel Farage? And literally, Wes is literally making up what Nigel Farage will do. Nigel Farage hasn't even described what his health policy will be.
Indeed, and I have to say it was exactly the same at the Liberal Democrat conference back in Bournemouth. They could not, and here the same at Labour, cannot and will not stop talking about Nigel Farage and reform, because of course he presents at the moment a pretty existential threat to them, leading in the polls about 30%. A poll the other day predicting him to get a majority even bigger than Boris Johnson got in 2019, and also poll ratings saying that the Prime Minister is less popular than any Prime Minister dating back to 1977. So they've clearly made a decision to really go on the attack. I think Wes Streeting just then ramped it up by several notches, calling Farage a snake oil salesman and much else beside. He didn't quite say that he was racist this morning, but he sort of went towards that as well. And of course we had the Prime Minister the other day describing Reform's policy to revoke indefinite leave to remain as actually racist. But look, people need and will want to hear from the Prime Minister not just how bad reform are, but what good this government can do for ordinary people, and quickly, because of course people voted for change, didn't they? It was on the front of the manifesto. They promised change, they promised that things would get better. At the moment, to many people, it doesn't feel like things are getting better. We had GDP figures out today, growth going in the wrong direction, down to 0.3%. That means there's less money around at a time that taxes are going to have to go up, public services under strain. So Wes Streeting painting this picture of a sort of tech revolution for the National Health Service, digital hospitals, online appointments, saying that this will get the waiting list down. Telling people, I think it went down very well. Wes Streeting is very good at this sort of stuff, talking about the care sector as well and a fair pay agreement. But look, on care, they still haven't got that long-term strategy. We keep getting promised it from successive governments and it doesn't come. And I thought one other thing really interesting, he talked about Angela Rayner, who of course recently had to resign as Deputy Prime Minister. He said, we want her back. She was a care worker. We need her experience, and everybody in there got on their feet for Angela Rayner. But my goodness, they've got a mountain to climb to turn those polls around.
They have indeed. Catherine Forster, thank you very much. GB News' political correspondent live at the Labour Party conference. Well, this is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. More live coverage from the conference as the Prime Minister gears up to speak. But first, let's get your latest headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top stories. Health Secretary Wes Streeting called Nigel Farage a snake oil salesman of British politics. Speaking at the Labour Party annual conference, Streeting also branded the Reform UK leader a con artist when unveiling Labour.
Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse. That man is a con artist.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is set to announce an NHS online hospital service to be launched in England within 2 years to help cut waiting times. Sir Keir Starmer will tell the Labour Party conference a new world is coming as he sets out plans for the digital service. And the White House unveiled its peace plan for Gaza, including a temporary administration headed up by Donald Trump with the help of Sir Tony Blair. Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed the plan for peace in Gaza and called on Hamas to agree to it. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me at the top of the hour.
You can now watch GB News live across the United States of America and the world on Truth Plus. Scan the QR code to find out more or visit gbnews.com/truth.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a fine day for many of us once again today, but it will be cloudier for the northwest compared with the southeast. And there'll be some rain in the northwest, especially western Scotland once again. We've got weather fronts dangling in from the Atlantic, tighter isobars towards the northwest as well, bringing a brisk breeze to the north and west of Scotland, Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, along with that Atlantic cloud and outbreaks of rain on and off for Northern Ireland, northwest Wales, northwest England and for much of Scotland, although the north and east of Scotland will be largely dry and bright, and the lion's share of sunshine will be towards the south and the east of England, where temperatures reach 20 Celsius. That is after any last fog patches clear. And then it's towards the north where we're going to see, well, the cloudy skies, the keen breeze continue overnight. Again, on and off rainfall for much of central and western Scotland. Cloud breaks for the far north and east of the mainland. And for Northern Ireland, here the rain easing off for a time, but there'll be some heavier rain arriving later on. And for much of England and Wales, it's mostly dry, but for North Wales, northwest England, a few spots of rain couldn't be ruled out overnight. Here's that heavier rain pushing into Northern Ireland and then western Scotland overnight, so an unsettled night for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. But for much of England and Wales, it's largely clear skies. There'll be some patchy cloud here and there. But where we do get the clear skies, temperatures will fall away. Another chilly night, temperatures dipping into the mid-single figures, and some mist patches first thing, particularly south of the M4 corridor. Those will last for the first few hours of the day, then they'll clear, and then it's again a mostly fine day on Wednesday across the south, into the Midlands, eastern England. But for northern England, for much of West and North Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here, a keen breeze, outbreaks of rain on and off, although easing off by the afternoon.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. The M8 westbound at junction 27 is experiencing lane restrictions due to a road traffic incident. Approach with caution. Accident clearance is underway on the A66 eastbound between the A67 and the A1M near Bowes. All lanes remain closed at present. Northamptonshire's M1 northbound has a broken down vehicle causing a lane closure between junction 18 and junction 19. Please note delays are likely. And on the trains, Avanti West Coast is currently experiencing disruption between Chester and Rhyl, while the Elizabeth line is affected between Slough and Reading. That's your update for now. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Welcome back. I'm Nana Akua, and my co-host and GB News Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood is at the Labour Party conference with Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Whiting. Tom, so tell us more.
Yes, Nana, and you join us as we can divulge some breaking news to everyone watching and indeed listening, and that is that Nigel Farage is due to make a speech later today responding to, as he sees it, the barrage of criticism that has come his way, particularly from the main stage here at the Labour Party conference. Well, I'm delighted to be joined by the Labour MP for Kettering, Rosie Wrighting. Rosie, you were just there in the main room listening to your guy, Wes Streeting. You're the PPS, as it's known in the lingo, to Wes Streeting, sort of his, what is it, principal private? No, parliamentary...
Parliamentary secretary.
We've got
I know
there.
it's a bit of mouthful.
Oh my, it's too late in the conference for all of these syllables. But what do you make of this? Nigel Farage feels like he's been attacked so much, so consistently, by like that last speech that we've just heard, that he's going to be responding in kind.
Well, I think it's right that Nigel Farage has questions to answer. I don't think this is about being attacked. I think it's if you tell people that you want to move the NHS to an insurance-based system, you should answer what you're going to do to get healthcare to the poorest of our communities. If you say that you want to take away protections for young women from online harm, you should answer what you're going to do. If you say you want to rip apart our communities, you should answer to those. This isn't about attacks. This is valid questions about how he says he would run the country and make my constituents worse off.
Now, of course, what the Reform Party might say is that he has answered those questions on many occasions. He said he wants a social insurance system, or he once spoke of a social insurance system like they have in France, for instance. That covers everyone without paying. But I think there's an interesting political going on here, which is that Nigel Farage has five now MPs, and every single speaker on that stage has been referring to him more than anyone else. The Chancellor devoted an entire section of her speech to Nigel Farage. Wes Streeting seemed to mention Farage sort of every other sentence. It's almost like he's the ghost in the room at every gathering here.
Well, yes, there are 4 or 5 MPs, depending on when you ask him, to be honest. But also, let's be clear, we are at a crossroads in our country. The next election will be a decision whether you want a Reform government and decline with Reform, a renewal with a Labour government. And we're clear about that fight. We're ready for that fight now. So yes, Nigel Farage has been mentioned quite a few times, and that is because we know the threat that Nigel Farage poses on this country to my constituents. So it is right that he is called out in our conference hall today.
Is this cynical? Is this the Labour Party trying to big Nigel Farage up because you think you're more likely to win in a head-to-head battle with a party like Reform than perhaps any of the other parties?
We are in a head-to-head battle with Reform. It's not more likely to win. That's where we are. I have a Reform-run council in my constituency. They have to answer questions about what they're doing for public services in Kettering. This is not which pick your player. We are in a battle with Nigel Farage. The Conservative Party is irrelevant. They don't come up on the doors. My voters don't ask about them. And we are fighting the battle with Reform head on.
Do you think that your seat is at risk from the Reform Party?
I think they're my main opposition at the moment, but I believe that what British people want is a country that's going to come together and fight the challenges that we have. We're in a difficult time. We've never seen a more volatile world than the one that we have today. And what I believe that my constituents want is a government that's going to rise up to those challenges, and that is a Labour government.
Do you think that this conference has been speaking to those big themes that you talk about, the global challenges around the world, the sclerotic rate of growth, the highest in the G7 rate of inflation that we see in this country? I mean, the big announcement from the Chancellor was about libraries in schools. Is it really the case that this party is stepping up to the big picture attitudes? Wes Streeting spent most of his speech talking about an app. Rachel Reeves was talking about libraries. Lovely things, I'm sure, but minor things.
First of all, I really don't think they are minor things. But what Rachel did also say yesterday is we are facing big headwinds, and you feel them now. The volatile international world that we see is felt in constituencies. It's why we stepped in to save British Steel. But also, back to the point of libraries or the NHS app, I don't think these are small things. When I see children in my constituency starting school or finishing primary school with a reading level that means they're going to struggle for the rest of their life, I don't think that is a little thing. I don't think access to books is a little thing. I think it's
extraordinary that we had the Chancellor on stage yesterday with, as you are rightly saying, and as she rightly said, the global headwinds and domestic headwinds too. The highest inflation in the G7, the highest borrowing costs in the G7.
And the highest growth in the G7.
And the highest growth in the G7. Only at the end of last year we've had our growth forecasts slashed precipitously. So looking ahead, we're looking at higher taxes in this coming budget because the OBR expects growth to be lower. Yes, it was higher in the past, but it's on a downwards trajectory. So on all of these different elements, you've got massive problems. And yet the massive solutions just don't seem to be there. I mean, we could argue all the time about whether or not libraries are going to be the transformational change that...
I think they're part of a bigger picture.
But why were they the biggest thing? The Chancellor said yesterday, surely the country deserves more than that.
I mean, there's so much that we've done. We've increased the minimum wage. We've got free trade deals, which these jobs saves in places like Kettering, outside of London. We've already done so much, but these things, access to libraries, and we're focusing on that one. There was so many announcements in the Chancellor's speech yesterday. Getting young people into employment.
Can you name me 3 announcements in the Chancellor's speech yesterday?
I'm not going to play that game, but the youth guarantee, the libraries, and I'm trying to think of
those were the two. Those were the two.
No, she spoke yesterday about the real challenges that we face as a country, and about how it's a Labour government that is stepping up to the plate. And by the way, throughout history, throughout these difficult times, it often does fall to Labour to rise up and to be able to put our country back together.
I think you've made a really eloquent case that the country is facing huge problems. Where I think you're struggling in this conversation, because the Cabinet is not giving you the answers to give me, is that there aren't those big answers. The Chancellor said 2 things, said a tweak to benefits and indeed the school library policy. Why is the Chancellor of the Exchequer? I mean, we are facing huge challenges, as you rightly and eloquently outline. But it just seems that the solutions are ever so much smaller.
We have said that the #1 mission of this government is growing the economy so that we can face those headwinds in the strongest position possible. Decisions that we've made already around planning reform, getting people into work, jobs, international investment in the UK, that is all about growing the economy. There is no one solution, and that is the thing. Reform will go, and sure you'll see today on their press conference that they have all these quick fixes, but they're unfunded and they're not realistic. It is a combination of all these things, these Labour policies coming together, which is going to get our country into a better place. It's going to grow our economy, and it's going to make this country an amazing place for the next generation.
OK, well, Rosie, thanks so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure to talk to you. And, of course, so much more to come at the Labour Party conference. We're looking forward to the Prime Minister's speech in the next hour or so.
All right, Tom, thank you very much. Lots more coming up on today's show. More reaction on Health Secretary Red's treating speech. All of that and more. This is GB News. We are Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m.
only on GB News.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good afternoon, Britain. So, speaking just minutes ago at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool, Health Secretary Wes Streeting and had some choice words for Reform UK leader Nigel Farage. Have a quick listen.
Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling. Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse and asks for your credit card before your care. We should know by now that man is a con artist. When Farage was asked whether he'd side with medical scientists, he said, "I wouldn't side with anybody." Anti-science, anti-reason, anti-health. Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling.
It's a tad harsh, isn't it? All eyes are now on the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer, will take to the stage in the next hour. But joining me now to analyse that in the studio, health journalist Michael Day. Snake oil salesman and all this sort of thing. Not you.
Not yet.
What were your thoughts on the speech, and what did you take away from it?
I thought it was a good speech. I think Wes Streeting is one of their best performers, and they clearly see the NHS. Labour sees the NHS as an area where it can take back some ground from reform. I think a while ago, not that long ago, Nigel Farage said, we shouldn't rule anything out when it comes to reforming the NHS. And he might be right. I mean, in some ways it's not working, and the times have changed. But it's a sacred cow. People love the NHS, and I think Wes Streeting clearly. And Labour is focusing in on those comments, and it will do more as we approach the next election. So it's not surprising what he said today.
And what about the stance of the BMA, who are opposing the idea to have more access to appointments by the general public?
Oh, I think, again, Wes Streeting's hit on something which people care about. I mean, we all know people, our parents, older relatives, anyone, us as well. When so many people now can't get an appointment, you have these online triage systems blocked by 11 o'clock in the morning. So he's hit on something there. And the BMA are going to have to, I think. They're under pressure. They've already threatened strike action, as I understand it. But I think, this has put the BMA on the back foot slightly.
Yeah.
You're going to have to justify that quite.
Because they're not badly paid, really. Doctors, especially at the higher end, are not badly paid at all.
GPs certainly aren't badly paid.
Exactly.
What's the average, 120,000?
140, I think.
Yeah, and if they've got a pharmacy, what is it, approaching 200,000? I mean, that's not all of them. And they have a tough, high-pressure job. But people do need to see their GPs, and things do need to change.
And I think, in particular, social care is very important. And he touched on Angela Rayner, who he then said, we want her back.
Well, that was, I mean, he's on the right of the party, Streeting, isn't he? But it's, it's kind of a bit of a fop to the left in the sense that he can name-check her, because she's gone. But a lot of the left of the party miss her. They were fairly appalled that she went. So he's done that. And he's mentioned, I mean, social care is terribly important. You know, we're finally realising that health and social care are different sides of the same thing, really. So, I mean, that makes sense to announce that.
In fact, I think if the Labour Party were to really grasp that and deal with the unfairness that if you get Alzheimer's, you're going to have to sell your house.
Yeah.
But if you have something like cancer, on the other hand, it's OK, we'll pay for you. That's not on, is it?
No, of course it's not. I mean, the whole area is a mess. I mean, when was the Dilcott report? Was it 2011? We're still not grasped that nettle. We want, as a country, we want services that currently we can't afford or we're not prepared to pay for. And that's something.
Can we sustain this model free at the point of use?
Well, that's the $64,000 question. $64,000 question. I suspect not. With advances in technology, ageing populations, people living to 80 or 90 using 6 different drugs, needing, and there might be some digital technology that will help, but we are looking at a funding gap that's going to grow at the moment, so I'm not sure we can. So that's why Nigel Farage might say we need to look at healthcare, private healthcare, but the evidence isn't complete that will make the difference, because insurance administration costs are enormous. Look at America, for example.
Well, they keep pointing us out to America as though we're going to be like that, and I don't think we'll be anything like America. More like Australia. Australia do a very good system as well. Yeah. Listen, Michael, shame we couldn't have had longer.
I know, it's a shame. That was a big subject.
It was your fault you were late.
It was not my fault, it was the traffic.
No, listen, Michael, really good to talk to you. Thank you very much, Michael. We'll have a longer chat. I have a little show on Saturday and Sunday in the future called The Pulse.
I'll see you again.
Yeah, I'll see you again. That is, of course, Michael Day. He's a health journalist. He was live with me. Next up, though, lots more coming up. Do not go anywhere with the Prime Minister's speech. Will be live at the Labour Party conference. But first, weather.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a fine day for many of us once again today, but it will be cloudier for the northwest compared with the southeast. And there'll be some rain in the northwest, especially western Scotland once again. We've got weather fronts dangling in from the Atlantic. Tighter isobars towards the northwest as well, bringing a brisk breeze to the north and west of Scotland, Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland, along with that Atlantic cloud, and outbreaks of rain on and off for Northern Ireland, northwest Wales, northwest England, and for much of Scotland. Although the north and east of Scotland will be largely dry and bright, and the lion's share of sunshine will be towards the south and the east of England, where temperatures reach 20 Celsius. That is after any last fog patches clear. And then it's towards the north where we're going to see, well, the cloudy skies, the keen breeze continue overnight. Again, on and off rainfall for much of central and western Scotland. Cloud breaks for the far north and east of the mainland. And for Northern Ireland, here the rain easing off for a time, but there'll be some heavier rain arriving later on. And for much of England and Wales, it's mostly dry, but for North Wales, northwest England, a few spots of rain couldn't be ruled out overnight. Here's that heavier rain pushing into Northern Ireland and then western Scotland overnight. So an unsettled night for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. But for much of England and Wales, it's largely clear skies. There'll be some patchy cloud here and there. But where we do get the clear skies, temperatures will fall away. Another chilly night, temperatures dipping into the mid-single figures, and some mist patches first thing, particularly south of the M4 corridor. Those will last for the first few hours of the day, then they'll clear, and then it's again a mostly fine day on Wednesday across the south, into the Midlands, eastern England. But for northern England, for much of West and North Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here, a keen breeze, outbreaks of rain on and off, although easing off by the afternoon.
Expect warm spells with the odd rude interruption. Box Boilers sponsors the weather on GB News.
You could bank an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. And if that wasn't enough, you'll also get to drive away in this brand new motorhome. This brand new 2025 Benamar Primero could be yours. It comes with all the mod cons you'd expect from a vehicle worth over £74,000 and comfortably sleeps 4 people. This prize package is worth over £104,000. For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
A day for us today, Penny.
Yeah.
With losing our friend, Mr. John Stapleton, totally unexpectedly. I mean, of course, we knew he was ill.
Yes,
but
we didn't know as
we
well.
didn't know he was about to die.
Well, no. When he came in, we came in to the studio, and the three of us kind of were reunited.
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago, exactly. And yesterday, the lovely thing was that I had so many texts from people who you'd recognised as well from GMTV days, other people as well. Everybody saying what a gent he was and how kind and, you know, from my point of view, the reason he stayed a friend, you know, obviously, you know, you have these, you call them screen husbands, screen wives, but the reason he stayed a friend was because he was genuinely funny. He made me laugh a lot, all the time. And in fact, I just recently did a little podcast with him. We were talking about things that he hated and everything, and he was talking about he hated people driving around with cars with their windows open and really loud music.
Yeah.
And he was just going, you know, he said, I just shout at them, can you turn it up a bit? There's somebody in Australia who can't quite hear the words. So you never expect it, you never want it. The people you love, you want to live forever. That's it.
That's very well said, yeah. I obviously was very friendly. He was, when we say a gentleman, he was gentle. He was a gentle soul. And then he became very nasty. It was very difficult to like and get on with. It was just you know, when Manchester United started to decline in terms of superiority, and he became so... He became so arrogant.
No,
he was unbearable.
He so didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good afternoon, Britain. It is 1 o'clock on Tuesday, the 30th of September. I'm Nana Akua, and Tom Harwood is at the Labour conference in Liverpool.
Nigel Farage is a snake oil salesman of British politics, and it's time to stop buying what he's selling.
Wes Streeting hits out at Nigel Farage, branding him the snake oil salesman of British politics. The Reform leader is expected to hit back later on. Sir Keir Starmer will soon take the stage, warning of a hard road ahead with tough choices. He'll tell Britain to reject the politics of grievance from Reform UK, but can he even convince his own party?
Yes, less than an hour now until the Prime Minister makes his plea to his party and to the nation at a time when Keir Starmer is struggling in the polls and talking up the threat of Nigel Farage as he sees it. But how will Nigel respond later on?
President Trump's Gaza peace plan gained support from France, Italy, Germany and the United Kingdom. With Tony Blair helping to shape it, could this be a breakthrough?
To ensure the success of this effort, my plan calls for the creation of a new international oversight body, the Board of Peace, we call it, be headed by a gentleman known as President Donald J. Trump of the United States.
Labour hands councillors gold-plated pensions even as council tax bills soar. Ministers say they deserve it, but critics call it a grubby raid on taxpayers. And of course, Tom Harwood joins me now from Liverpool. Tom, I was just going to say that on my little appreciation page on Facebook, they're actually putting sweepstakes out on how many times Keir Starmer mentions Nigel Farage in his speech.
I think it's a sensible thing to be betting on. My bet would be many, many, many indeed. Ever since the Prime Minister did that speech up in the northwest, where he sort of got the travelling press pack of journalists, the political lobby journalists, to sort of follow him up there, and what was he saying? Well, it was a speech entirely dedicated to saying that Nigel Farage is bad. There wasn't any government announcement to be made. He just wanted to put a marker in the sand that he sees his opposition now as that of Nigel Farage. That's been the strategy of the Labour Party, a party that I think has recognised they're not doing well in the polls. But I think it might be a wise strategy for them to make. And this is why. If you speak to people at the Labour Party conference here, they know they're not popular. But they believe that they could build a coalition against Farage in various seats. Tactical voting, if you will. Reform might be at 32% in the polls, but that means that there are around 70% of people who aren't voting Reform. It's the idea of the Labour Party strategy that they can be neutral enough in the eyes of Liberal Democrats, Liberal Conservatives, Greens, and others, to try and win over with a coalition of support in each of the seats. That's their plan. Whether or not it will work, I suppose, is an open question.
I think they potentially just upgrade Nigel Farage even further. They put him on an equal footing, even though he's only got 5 MPs. Tom Harwood, we will catch up with you at the conference. But now let's get your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you. The top stories this hour. Wes Streeting called Nigel Farage a snake oil salesman of British politics. He told the Labour Party conference, "We must win another fight too, one against the poison of post-truth politics." Streeting also branded the Reform UK leader a con artist, telling delegates Mr Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. Nigel Farage says he will be responding to those comments today.
Our country is being confronted with choices about who we are and what we stand for. And nowhere do those choices come together more starkly than our National Health Service. The founding principles of the NHS are now contested for the first time in generations. Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse and asks for your credit card before your care. We should know by now that man is a con artist.
Meanwhile, Wes Streeting says £500 million package to help boost pay and improve conditions for care workers is just the start, with more to come. The Health Secretary told the Labour Party's conference poverty pay will no longer be tolerated in social care. Labour says the initial investment in the agreement will mean that by 2028, care workers will expect to see a boost in their yearly wages. The Prime Minister will take to the stage later today, where he's set to say that British people stand at a fork in the road as he outlines his visions for the future. Sir Keir Starmer is expected to spell out what he sees as the stark difference between Labour's vision for the UK and that of Reform UK. He'll argue that his is a hard path, but one of renewal and decency, set against an alternative he portrays as decline and division. That route is one he's suggested belongs to Nigel Farage's Reform UK party, which is attracting significant numbers of former Labour voters, and whose deportation policies Sir Keir Starmer branded racist at the start of the conference. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is set to announce an NHS online hospital service to be launched in England within 2 years to help cut waiting times. Sir Keir Starmer will tell the Labour Party conference a new world is coming as he sets out plans for the digital service. The platform will allow patients to access prescriptions, book scans and tests, receive clinical advice and manage appointments through the NHS app. Labour claim the initiative will provide up to 8.5 million extra NHS appointments in its first 3 years. Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump were both quick to warn Hamas of the consequences should they reject the new peace deal announced by the White House last night. Speaking at a news conference in front of the world's media, Trump told Netanyahu he will have his full backing to do what you have to do. The White House earlier unveiled its peace plan for Gaza, including a temporary administration headed up by Donald Trump with the help of Sir Tony Blair. Hamas negotiators are said to be reviewing Donald Trump's plan in good faith. It states that if the fighting ends, Gaza will be placed under the control of a transitional government headed by Mr. Trump and others, including the former British Prime Minister Sotoni. The president described him as a good man, while the ex-Labour leader commended what he called the bold plan. US federal prosecutors urged a judge today to sentence Sean Diddy Combs to more than 11 years in prison this week following the hip-hop mogul's conviction on prostitution-related charges. The prosecutors sought at least 135 months imprisonment and asked the court to fine Combs $500,000 according to the court-filing US district judge. He's due to be sentenced on Friday. Combs, who's 55, faces up to 20 years behind bars after a jury on July the 2nd found him guilty following a 2-month trial on 2 counts of transporting male prostitutes across state lines to engage in drug-fueled sexual performances with his girlfriends while he watched and recorded. The jury acquitted Combs on the most serious counts he faced, racketeering and sex trafficking, charges that could have landed him prison for life. Combs pleaded not guilty to all charges and is expected to appeal his conviction. And rescuers are racing to pull dozens of students and workers from under the rubble of a school building that collapsed in East Java in Indonesia. 3 people have been killed and 99 others hospitalised, some of them with critical injuries, officials said today, adding that the death toll could still rise. At least 38 others, many of them teenage boys, remain trapped under the Islamic boarding school building. The Disaster Mitigation Agency said the 2-storey building had an unstable foundation and could not support the weight of the construction of 2 more floors. Those are the latest headlines for now. More from me in half an hour.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Here's a snapshot of the markets. The pound buying you $1.3426 and €1.1437. The price of gold is £2,834 and 1 pence per ounce, and the FTSE 100 is at 9,306 points.
Cheers Britannia Wine Club proudly sponsors the GB News Financial Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. Now, the Prime Minister will address the Labour Party conference in the next hour, where he's expected to draw a sharp contrast between Labour's vision for the UK and that of Reform UK. Now, this follows strong remarks from Health Secretary Wes Streeting just an hour ago, who launched a scathing attack on Reform UK's leader Nigel Farage, branding him a con artist and the snake oil salesman of British politics. Well, joining us now is GB News' political editor, Christopher Hope. God. So really, Christopher, this is just fascinating. They just literally cannot get away with having a go at Nigel Farage. They really can't, can they?
Yes, Nana, the queue is forming here of people going in to hear Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, what he has to say, and almost certainly Nigel Farage will feature, but also someone else is looming over this conference. Wes Streeting earlier said that Angela Rayner should come back. Let's hear what he had to say about Angela Rayner.
As the care worker who became our country's Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, this achievement is yours. Thank you. We'll definitely make sure she sees that. We need her back.
Let's ask. Hello, madam. Should Angela Rayner come back?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Sir, should Angela Rayner come back? Sir, Angela Rayner should come back? Not sure. Not sure.
Angela Rayner, yes.
Yeah, Angela Rayner, definitely. So, broad brush approval there for Angela Rayner. Of course, she resigned, didn't she, over issues with her tax affairs when she bought that flat down in Hove on the south coast of England. But yeah, I think you heard there from Wes Streeting, keen Angela Rayner comes back. But these people here, they're focused on the future, and right now that isn't her, it's Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister. What he's got to say, he almost certainly will raise the issue of patriotism about Nigel Farage and painting this his party as the one who can unite the party. Of course, he'll say, as we know from overnight brief remarks, there's a fork in the road, he'll say, and one fork goes towards Reform UK and one fork towards Labour.
Or is it really Keir Starmer? Perhaps, because Wes Streeting's speech was quite strong. To me and others listening, it could have been a bid for the leadership, and if he does become the leader of the Labour Party, he won't have the hurdles that Andy Burnham has, and he could bring back Angela Rayner.
Yeah, that's right, Nana. I mean, yes, indeed. I mean, I think the issue of Andrew Rayner, I think the feeling here amongst ministers and MPs, they think she will get a chance to come back into frontline politics, but just not yet. But the focus here is Sir Keir Starmer. He's on the floor in the polls, the most unpopular Prime Minister since the 1970s. He's got to say something to try and put a spring in the step of the workers here. But will he mention, for example, 125 jobs going at that Lindsey oil refinery? Why is a Labour government allowing those jobs to go in an area like Grimsby that matters so much and has so much issues there with the decline in the fishing fleet? So Sir Keir Starmer, live on GB News from 2 p.m. Stay tuned.
Christopher Hope, thank you very much. GB News' political editor live at the conference. Right, let's now cross over to my co-host and GB News' deputy political editor, Tom Harwood, who's with Labour MP for Pendle and Clitheroe, Jonathan Hinder MP. Tom.
Yeah, that's right, Nana. I'm joined by Jonathan here at our magnificent GB News stand.
It is magnificent.
Coloured in red, white and blue. And I know you're a big fan of the red, white and blue of these flags. Yeah. That's your sort of Labour politics. Do you think the people running your party are close enough to that sort of politics?
Yes, I absolutely think so, but we've got to show them. And I think that's what Keir has got to show us today. We're not just talking to ourselves, which we're very good at in the Labour Party. Of course, it is Labour Party conference. It's about coming together as a party, as members. But it is about speaking to the country as well. He's the Prime Minister. He's got to tell a story this afternoon about where we are and where we're heading, how we're going to get there.
Now, he's tried to tell stories before. Sometimes it's become a bit of a running joke how often he's mentioned that his father was a tool maker. But interestingly, I was speaking to a pollster last night who told me just 1 in 5 voters actually know that Keir Starmer's father was a tool maker. Now, to you and I and people steeped in politics for our jobs, that just sounds extraordinary. You would have thought of everyone. But to me it says that perhaps this is not a Prime Minister who's been able to tell his story, who's been able to get his story across. Either people aren't listening or he's not telling it in the right way.
Yeah, well, I think it's important that people do hear a little bit about a politician's background, but actually most people are not interested in identity politics. I think that's what we need to learn in the Labour Party is people are interested in what is the government doing for them and for the country. So I'm not too fussed about that statistic. I've heard something similar before. I'm not surprised. Most people don't pay attention to what's going on in politics, but they are interested in what the government is doing for them and for their area. So yeah, let's focus on that rather than the identity politics stuff that just feels old hat now.
Well, that is where perhaps this party, this government, runs into a problem, because clearly the country is in a mess. Inflation's the highest in the G7. Growth is expected to be one of the lowest in the G7 in the coming year. Productivity is expected to be downgraded by the OBR. Our costs of borrowing are the highest that they've been in recent memory. I mean, all of these different things make the job of people running this government so much harder. How on earth do they turn this around? Because are we going to hear anything from the Prime Minister that is going to be big enough to meet that grand scale of challenge?
We've got to be realistic with people, absolutely. But 3 key priorities that I think we need to be talking about today, tomorrow, throughout this Parliament: the cost of living, improving public services and sorting out the immigration system. If we sort those 3 things out, if we laser focus on those for the next 4 years, we'll win the next general election.
Do you think it was a mistake for the Prime Minister to call Nigel Farage's immigration policy racist?
I wouldn't have said it, because I think we've got to be very careful in saying that there are people voting for reform, vast majority of them who voted for it in the local elections. They're good, tolerant, decent people, and that was sort of a cry of anguish against the 2 main parties. So we've got to be very, very careful with the language we use. Farage has got nothing. All he's got is grievance around immigration. If we can sort that out, what have Reform got left? Not a lot else. You know, it's Andrea Jenkins singing at a conference, these crazy people talking about health. They don't have a clue. So, you know, let's sort out immigration, and we need to set the agenda. That's the critical thing for me. We need to be setting the agenda, taking radical steps, decisive action, fewer consultations, quangos, reviews. Yeah. Let's have some decisions so we can show people we're taking a grip of this country.
Jonathan, you say you wouldn't say that the reform policy is racist. But we have heard Keir Starmer say that. We've heard Wes Streeting say that. We've heard Rachel Reeves say that. Do you want them to stop saying that?
Well, it's up to them what they say. What I would say is that politicians need to be in line with where the public are. I think Farage has gone beyond where the public are in that regard. When it comes to indefinite leave to remain, if people have been given that, in good faith, they have said that you can, the state has said you can stay here, then we should be honouring that. But that's not to say we shouldn't be reforming it in the way that Shabana has outlined yesterday. And I think she's shown you can come into a brief, you can grip it and show where you're going. I'm excited about that.
Do you think that non-British citizens should be able to claim benefits?
I think there's a conversation to be had there. I wouldn't want to say right here, right now, absolutely they cannot. But I think there's an understanding that if you're coming here to Britain to make your way, then we should expect that you are in work and that you're contributing to the country, as the vast majority of immigrants to the UK do.
Now, just finally, we've heard from the Prime Minister over the course of recent years. His speech is never just the Prime Minister. Lots of other people tend to try and have their words said as well. It's almost become famous that this is going to be the speech that is perhaps the most heckled. How many heckles, if you're a betting person, are going to be up there interrupting the Prime Minister this afternoon?
I have no idea, but in my experience, he always handles them very well. He's very well prepared for them, and he bats them away very quickly. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he's got in his locker in terms of shutting them down today.
Sometimes the most exciting bit of the speech. Jonathan Hinder, thanks indeed for joining us here at the GB News stand at the heart of Labour Party conference.
Right, stay with us because it's now your chance to win a brand new four-berth motorhome, a full prize package worth £104,000. Here are the details that you need.
It's our biggest, greatest Great British giveaway to date. Your chance to win a prize package worth over £104,000. You could be driving away with this brand new Benamar Primero motorhome. With thanks to Marquis Leisure, this four-berth home from home comes complete with integrated kitchen and bathroom areas, sky view roof light, and has all the tech you'd expect from the latest 2025 model. We'll also give you an incredible £30,000 in tax-free cash to make sure any adventures in your motorhome are taken in style.
For another chance to win, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB16 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 31st of October. The winner will be contacted live on GB News, week commencing 10th of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. It is fast approaching 21 minutes after 1 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show and more from the Labour Party conference.
Yes, the queues are forming here on the floor of the Labour Party conference as things really get into gear for the Prime Minister's big speech. Is it a make or break moment for a man who has, well, perhaps not won over the entirety of his party, given the position in the polls?
But after the break, Donald Trump's Gaza peace plan wins backing from Europe, with Sir Tony Blair at the heart of it. But will Hamas agree? All that and more. You're with GB News, Britain's news channel.
Decisions made in Washington aren't just shaping America, they're shaping Britain too. From migration to global security, from crime to health. Whatever happens in the White House today
will be felt in your town or city tomorrow.
That's why The Late Show is live from Washington, D.C.
Cutting through the politics to show you what it all means for Britain.
The Late Show live every night at midnight.
Only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world. But look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
Exciting news. Every Friday, my Patrick Christie's Tonight Show is going to have a twist to it. We're welcoming some special guests. You. That's right, on Fridays I'm going to be doing my show in front of a live studio audience because this show is about you and what you have to say. It's going to be the same big debates, same big topics, same big opinions, but every Friday night at 9 p.m. you are invited to come on down to Patrick Christie's Tonight to be a part of the action. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
No,
Because the failure is
you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes and Co weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akua, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, though. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel. Good afternoon, Britain. It is 24 minutes after 1 o'clock. Now, the White House has unveiled its peace plan for Gaza, including a temporary administration headed up by Donald Trump with the help of Sir Tony Blair. Now, the 20-point peace plan was released by the US government just minutes before Mr. Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu held a joint news conference last night. Back across the pond, Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed the plan for peace in Gaza and called on Hamas to agree to it. Well, joining me now is former British Army spokesperson, Major Mike Shearer. Mike, really good to talk to you. This is, I think, brilliant news. There are still those with some visceral hatred of Donald Trump and cannot even acknowledge that this is at least a move forward because we want the killing to stop. But can you kind of clarify some of the points in the 20-point peace plan? What is it about?
Well, the first one, and I guess probably the most important one, is time. So the moment that Israel accepted the plan, Hamas have got 72 hours to respond to it. So I think they're now on 50 hours, maybe 60 left to do something. And really what it's asking Hamas to do is to capitulate so that Israel can achieve all its war aims. And right there, I think, is where the problem is going to lie. Because this is not just an agreement of minds. This is an ideology that is poisoned with determining the obliteration of every Israeli in the state. So whilst it is fraught with difficulties from the outset, I think we have witnessed a supreme act of diplomatic and political theatre. What do I mean by that? Well, the United States have managed to get all the Arab states to agree to this plan. So that now, if Hamas reneges on it in any way, it looks to me like the Arab states in the region will be siding with Israel to do what they need to do to secure peace in Israel and the wider region.
Genius, isn't it? Because if you want the killing to stop and Hamas aren't prepared to stop the killing, which is clearly because they're still firing rockets, they're still not agreeing to release the hostages, they're still not agreeing to anything. And I know the last peace agreement they said was broken by Netanyahu, but I think there was another side to it that Hamas didn't comply with. But the bottom line is, if we want the killing to stop, this is genius, surely, to put all the pressure on Hamas.
It is, as I said a moment ago, it is a supreme demonstration of diplomacy and political maneuvering.
Yeah.
So the United States, Donald Trump's team have done a brilliant job in getting the Arab states on side. And of course, they were instrumental with the Abraham Accords under Donald Trump in 2020. So they are well read into the sentiment of Israel's Arab neighbors, and it looks like they presented them with a logic that they would have found difficult to disagree with. It is now on Hamas, and you heard just yesterday that if they don't join in, that Israel is going to get a free hand from the United States to finish their military objective, and that is to expel Hamas from Gaza or kill them in position.
And of course, the deal is that they'll have absolutely no hand in running Gaza once this is finished. And of course, Benjamin Netanyahu did say that he will unleash whatever it is he has to unleash to get the job done, which I get again. But there is one fly in the ointment, if not the agreements that are there. Tony Blair. So Tony Blair is in there. I mean, seriously, he is the orchestrator of one of the worst things that the UK signed up to, Iraq.
It's crazy. So look, Tony Blair was, the moment he stopped being Prime Minister, he started to lead this quartet of so-called diplomacy, which is basically the UN, the US, the EU, and Russia, to get agreements between Palestine and Israel. Well, they had very little, if no success whatsoever. And we know the rest of Tony Blair's history. I mean, I find that particular appointment very strange. It's like rubbing salt into the Middle East's wounds of days gone by. I find that very strange indeed.
And the thing is, he doesn't have a lot of credibility with the British public in the sense that a lot of us will acknowledge he was a very charismatic leader, and some people, but he leaves this horrible taste in your mouth after what happened in Iraq. Of course, there were no weapons of mass destruction, and then, of course, Saddam Hussein was overthrown, and then, of course, since then, hell has been unleashed on the West in terms of terrorist organisations and cells and this and that.
Look, Tony Blair was actually a very good domestic politician, but I'm afraid the moment he became the Vice President of the United States and that little puppet man for George W. Bush, he lost it. He completely lost it. He gave up on his domestic politics. He took us to a war in the Middle East that was unnecessary and completely scuppered any type of stabilizing in that unit, in that region that we could have looked forward to at the time.
Well, the good thing on this, if Hamas agrees, the killing will stop. Do you suspect that ultimately they'll have to capitulate? And if they do you believe they'll return the hostages either in or not intact?
Look, Hamas are now under major pressure. I really hope against all hopes really, that they do join in. Of course, we want the hostages back. We want all of them back as soon as possible. But can I see that happening? I'm doubtful. Even if they do that, do I think that all Hamas agents and operatives will adhere to the rules as laid out in the 20-point plan? I'm afraid I've seen too much of this, and I don't think so. I think in the end, Israel, with the support of the United States and their Arab neighbors, it looks like now, will have to finish the job by way of military means before moving on to diplomacy and diplomatic means thereafter.
All right, Major Mike Shearer, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. Really good to talk to you. Interesting take on that as well. What do you think? gbnews.com/your say. But right now, I'm going to show you some pictures from the Labour Party conference where the Prime Minister has just arrived. That is ahead of his much anticipated speech, which will be set to take place within the hour. He's expected to draw a sharp contrast between Labour's vision for the UK and that of Reform UK. So there he is, arriving at the conference to cheers. There he is with his wife, and nice little red dress. I like that. That's a very nice number. Hope she paid for that. I hope that wasn't one of those freebies. Although I don't think it was. All right, 31 minutes after 1 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. More live coverage from the Labour Party conference. The Prime Minister is set to speak imminently. He has arrived at conference. All of that and more after your latest news headlines.
Nana, thank you very much. The top stories. The Health Secretary, West Streeting, called Nigel Farage a snake oil salesman of British politics. Speaking at the Labour Party annual conference, Streeting also branded the Reform UK leader a con artist when unveiling Labour's plans for the NHS.
Farage wants to replace the NHS with an insurance system. His vision for healthcare is a system that checks your pockets before your pulse. That man is a con artist.
Meanwhile, the Prime Minister is set to announce an NHS online hospital service to be launched in England within 2 years to help cut waiting times. Sir Keir Starmer will tell the Labour Party conference a new world is coming as he sets out plans for the digital service. And the White House unveiled its peace plan for Gaza, including a temporary administration headed by the US President with the help of Sir Tony Blair. Sir Keir Starmer has welcomed the plan for peace in Gaza and called on Hamas to agree to it. Those are the latest GB News headlines. For now, more from me at the top of the hour.
Tune into GB News Radio wherever you are. Online, on DAB digital radio, on TuneIn, on Radio Player and on your smart speaker. Just say, play GB News.
Thank you, Tatiana. Coming up, we'll be bringing you the Prime Minister's speech live. Plus, gold-plated pensions for councillors spark fury, while town halls warn of bankruptcy. All of that and more to come. You're with GB News. We are Britain's news channel.
Hi there and welcome to the latest update from the Met Office for GB News. It's a fine day for many of us once again today, but it will be cloudier for the northwest compared with the southeast. And there'll be some rain in the northwest, especially western Scotland once again. We've got weather fronts dangling in from the Atlantic. Tighter isobars towards the northwest as well, bringing a brisk breeze to the north and west of Scotland, Irish Sea coast, Northern Ireland. Along with that, Atlantic cloud and outbreaks of rain on and off for Northern Ireland, northwest Wales, northwest England and for much of Scotland. Although the north and east of Scotland will be largely dry and bright, and the lion's share of sunshine will be towards the south and the east of England, where temperatures reach 20 Celsius. That is after any last fog patches clear. And then it's towards the north where we're going to see, well, the cloudy skies, the keen breeze continue overnight. Again, on and off rainfall for much of central and western Scotland. Cloud breaks for the far north and east of the mainland. And for Northern Ireland, here the rain easing off for a time, but there'll be some heavier rain arriving later on. And for much of England and Wales, it's mostly dry, but for North Wales, northwest England, a few spots of rain couldn't be ruled out overnight. Here's that heavier rain pushing into Northern Ireland and then western Scotland overnight. So an unsettled night for Scotland and for Northern Ireland. But for much of England and Wales, it's largely clear skies. There'll be some patchy cloud here and there. But where we do get the clear skies, temperatures will fall away. Another chilly night, temperatures dipping into the mid-single figures. And some mist patches first thing, particularly south of the M4 corridor. Those will last for the first few hours of the day, then they'll clear, and then it's again a mostly fine day on Wednesday across the south, into the Midlands, eastern England. But for northern England, for much of West and North Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland, thicker cloud here, a keen breeze, outbreaks of rain on and off, although easing off by the afternoon.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon. This is the latest AI travel news from GBNews.com. Expect heavy disruptions on the M20 eastbound exit slip at junction 7 due to a broken down vehicle, leading to a lane closure. Traffic on North Yorkshire's A66 eastbound is severely affected by a collision between the A67 and the junction with the A1M, with all lanes closed. In Northamptonshire, on the M1 northbound, a broken down vehicle has resulted in 1 out of 4 lanes being closed. And on the trains, there are disruptions impacting Avanti West Coast services between Chester and Rhyl, and the Elizabeth line is experiencing operational difficulties on its route between Slough and Reading. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good afternoon, Britain. 37 minutes after 1 o'clock. I'm Nana Akua. Now, councillors are set to be handed gold-plated pensions despite record increases in council tax. Community Secretary Steve Reid, he's also the Housing Secretary, isn't he? The one that couldn't tell us how many houses the party had built. I thought that was most entertaining. He said more than 16,000 officials will be given the taxpayer-funded retirement income, saying, you deserve it. But critics warn it will mean hard-working families footing the bill. So joining me now is Head of Campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance, Elliot Keck. Elliot, did you see that clip?
I did. No, I think it's disgraceful. Councillors are supposed to be there as essentially volunteers, representing their local community, holding the council to account, ensuring that it's run in the best interests of their community. They're not supposed to be in it for a payday. They're not supposed to be in it for a retirement fund when they eventually retire, and I think it's absolutely shocking that this decision has been made. The Conservatives were right to abolish these pensions for local councillors in 2014, and I hope Labour will listen to the incoming fury of residents.
So local councillors, they don't get paid, do they? Or
they get what's called an allowance.
So they get an allowance?
Yeah.
So how does it work? Just explain to our listeners and viewers what this actually means.
So the idea of the allowance is that if you're a councillor, it's likely that you may have to take, for example, annual leave from work to attend meetings, and you're using quite a significant amount of time to do those duties, and so you get compensated a small amount for that to make sure that it's not proving a financial burden, a financial strain. It's not supposed to be a salary. The idea of being a councillor is it's supposed to be a voluntary role. I think that's healthy because it means there's a bit of separation between you and the council officials that do the day-to-day running of the council. The second that you start talking about salaries, the second you start talking about these gold-plated pensions, councillors and council officials will only get closer, get more pally, and that leads to terrible decisions for local government.
So they get an allowance. Is it a set amount, or they can claim for it and they have to show that it's worth?
So it's essentially set by the local council.
So they get this allowance, and now they're going to get this gold-plated pension. So how will that work? How does that link with?
Yeah, so the way that this pension works is unlike most pensions where you just put in a bit of money every year and then whatever you've got left you can claim down on. It will be equivalent to a certain percentage of your councillor allowance, and at the end of your career, when you retire, you'll get a guaranteed annual amount of money that is linked to how much you earned when you were a councillor and how many years you were a councillor. But the critical thing is that pot will never run out. For as long as you live, you will get that guaranteed inflation-linked pension, unlike other people who, when their pension pot runs out, there's nothing left.
Wow. Wow, so that is money for life type thing.
It is money for life, yeah, that's exactly how it will work.
And we, as the taxpayers, council taxpayers, are going to have to foot that bill now.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was something that Angela Rayner said when she was Housing Secretary, where she talked about you're allowed to increase council tax by about 5%, but she said it could go up to 25%, and some councils are looking to take advantage of that. So our council tax bills are rising.
Yeah, that's right. And, there's a very real funding pressures in local government. We know about social care, we know about special educational needs, disabilities children, we know about potholes and graffiti and all the rest of it. So there's very, very real need for council finances to be used carefully and sensibly to help deal with important local issues. And yet what this government is saying is to those councils that are going to be increasing council tax, you don't need to use that money, or you don't need to use all that money for frontline services. You can use it for a nice little nest egg for your councillors.
It's astonishing because they are wasting our money. I was reading the other day that, and I know for first hand that they send out taxis for children children who may have special educational needs or who have certain issues, learning difficulties, and it doesn't matter where that child lives, they will ferry that child to a school that is nearby.
Yeah, using private taxis sometimes. Yeah,
private taxis. And if the person doesn't go, the private taxi still gets paid. It's a very good gig.
Yeah, I think there's one council that spends as much as £950 every single day for one child. These aren't means tested, so if the parent is able to afford it themselves, granted anyway, they're not allowed to take into account whether or not the parent has a motability car. So you might have a motability car. Specifically, the idea is to drive that child to and from school, and you're able to access a council service. That means the council will pay for that child to be able to go to school, to and from school, using a separate taxi. So, there's so many areas where, if the state feels broken, and providing a nest egg for local councillors when they retire seems to be the lowest of low priorities.
Well, do you know, I know somebody whose children needed to go, were being ferried by school via taxi, and it was a fight to get them to take the same taxi. They wanted to send 2 taxis taking 2 children from the same house.
Extraordinary, to
a school, and I was like, that doesn't make sense. So I wrote to them. And mentioned, at the end, mentioned it to me. Happened to work at GBNews because it is a waste of our money. I couldn't bear the sight of it.
This is what all your viewers should be doing when they see their council wasting money. If eventually this policy gets passed and councils have to choose whether or not they opt into this policy, your viewers should be writing to their council and demanding that they don't.
Well, I had something very similar as well happening to me, where some malicious person decided to report my very old Citroen C1, which is parked and moves, which is parked near my house, right outside my house pretty much. I don't have my own driveway. And they reported to the council that the car has been abandoned. And then the council sent me a letter, so wasted time sending me a letter, saying, we've checked with DVLA, this car is registered to you at your address, it is fully taxed and MOT'd. Is it abandoned? I thought, no, it's called parked outside my house, and I had to call them.
Why would you pay tax on an abandoned car?
I had to call them to tell them. They said, please call us and tell us that this car isn't abandoned. So I called them up and said, it's outside my house, that's called parked.
It does suggest that they don't have enough work to do, doesn't it?
Really nothing at all. Anyway, we hope to get a good news from Rachel Reeves because she's planning her budget in November, October, whenever it is. But Elliot Keck, thank you very much. Really good to talk to you. That is Elliot Keck. He's the head of campaigns at the Taxpayers Alliance. Now, a spokesperson for the Local Government Association who's responsible for the council said reinstating councillors' access to the local government pension scheme is an essential step in recognising their dedication and service to their communities. 43 minutes after 1 o'clock. This is Good Afternoon Britain on GB News. Lots more coming up on today's show. We will be live at the Labour Party conference. The Prime Minister is set to speak imminently, and Nigel Farage is set to respond to Labour's criticism.
Yes, the leader of the Reform Party will be making the very unusual step of doing a speech after the speech of the guy who's Prime Minister, whose conference we're all at. The Times is now reporting what Nigel Farage will say in that speech, accusing the Labour Party of inciting violence against himself and the Reform Party in general. More on that after this.
Well, language matters. But now, if you're in search of some holiday sun, here is the forecast of some of the top European holiday destinations.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Torrential rain at the moment across parts of Spain. That will be easing from the Valencia area. Meanwhile, some heavy rain across parts of southern Italy during Wednesday, particularly over Sicily, and some scattered showers too likely across the Balkans. 1 or 2 showers over Greece. Most of the Greek islands, though, dry, fine and sunny, and plenty of sunshine in Turkey as well. The odd shower cropping up in Santorini as we head through Friday. Some sunshine returning to Rome. Goodbye.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Sad day for us today, Penny.
Yeah.
With losing our friend, Mr. John Stapleton, totally unexpectedly. I mean, of course, we knew he was ill.
Yes,
but
we didn't know he was ill.
We didn't know he was about to die.
Well, no. When he came in, we came in to the studio, and the three of us kind of were reunited.
Just a month ago.
Just a month ago, exactly. And yesterday, the lovely thing was that I had so many texts from people who you'd recognise as well from GMTV days, other people as well. Everybody saying what a gent he was and how kind and, you know, from my point of view, the reason he stayed a friend, you know, obviously, you know, you have these, you call them screen husbands, screen wives, but the reason he stayed a friend was because he was genuinely funny. He made me laugh a lot, all the time. And, in fact, I just recently did a little podcast with him. We were talking about things that he hated and everything, and he was talking about he hated people driving around with cars with their windows open and really loud music.
Yeah.
And he was just going, you know, he said, I just shout at them, can you turn it up a bit? There's somebody in Australia who can't quite hear the words. So you never expect it, you never want it. The people you love, you want to live forever. That's it.
That's very well said, yeah. I obviously was very friendly. He was, when we say a gentleman, he was gentle. He was a gentle soul. And then he became very nasty. It was very difficult to like and get on with. It was just you know, when Manchester United started to decline in terms of superiority, and he became so... He became so arrogant.
No, he really
Oh, he was unbearable.
He so didn't.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Britain was once the envy of the world, but look around. A nation that no longer knows what it is or where it's going. A country that's broken. How do we fix Britain? How do we bring it back? Friday night with Matt Goodwin at 8 p.m, only on GB News.
At GB News, we love to hear from you, our loyal community. So drop us a line at gbnews.com/yoursay. There, you can talk to each other and also to the presenters live on air. gbnews.com/yoursay, because GB News is your channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain, 48 minutes after 1 o'clock. Let's cross live now to Liverpool as my co-host and GB News Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood is joined by former Labour MP Jonathan Ashworth. Tom.
Yeah, that's right, Nana. I'm here with Labour big beast Jonathan Ashworth. I suppose you never really get used to be called a big beast, but it is the lingo in these parts of the world.
Big beast. No, I'm just a squeaking mouse these days. But it's always a pleasure to be on GB News with you, Tom.
Now, I've got to start. Of course, we're expecting the Prime Minister to speak in around 11 minutes' time. But really unusually, we've got another party leader who's going to be making a speech after this speech from this Prime Minister. Now, ordinarily in British politics, sort of each party has their own week. You know, it's the Labour week this week, it'll be the Tories next week. Reform had their conference a little while ago. This is breaking all the rules. Why do you think Nigel Farage is doing it?
Well, I don't know, but we will see. I don't know if that is because he's rattled by some of the very direct and spicy attacks on him from Labour front benches this week. But look, we'll have to see what he has to say. I've only seen what I've seen on Twitter, and I think Nigel, as I understand it, is saying he thinks his personal safety has been compromised. I think it's very important in politics that we can disagree agreeably. In my time in politics, 2 of my parliamentary colleagues were murdered. Lots of parliamentarians get the most horrible, disgusting abuse constantly on their social media, sometimes very violent threats, particularly if are women. So I would say that even though I obviously disagree with reform and reform candidates, that anybody who is threatening their safety should have no part in it should be dealt with appropriately.
Now, this is all in the context of course, the shooting of Charlie Kirk in the United States. Many people making the connection, making the argument that if you call someone fascist or racist, that then almost legitimizes violence against them in the view of some people. If they genuinely thought fascist revolution was imminent, then they might do some pretty extraordinary, extreme and illegal things. Is there a duty on Labour politicians to not call Nigel Farage a racist?
Well, this is a reference, I think, to the interview at the weekend where Keir Starmer was put to him. Does he think that the policy that Nigel Farage had announced on deporting people who, there's a technical thing in immigration policy called indefinite leave to remain, whether he thought that policy was racist? And Keir Starmer said yes, he thought it was a racist, immoral policy. I think you can criticise policies, but I think all of us in politics should be very careful when criticising the motives of individuals.
Do you think Wes Streeting went too far then yesterday when he was asked not just about the policy but the man Nigel Farage, and he didn't quite say in terms Nigel Farage is a racist, but he did say words to the effect of make your own minds up, this is a man who has, and then listed several things including a leaflet in a Scottish by-election campaign pointing to things that he said are racist. Do you think that Wes Streeting went too far?
Well, I've not actually seen exactly what Wes said, and I genuinely haven't. I'm not doing that trick that politicians do when they have actually seen it.
You admit it, they do sometimes do that
They pretend they've not seen it. No, I genuinely haven't seen it. But look, I think if you are criticising policy stances or the way in which your policies have been presented, I do think that is legitimate. But look,
hang on. Let's go back to first principles on this.
Yeah.
Obviously, the reform policy is to abolish the status of indefinite leave to remain.
Yeah.
Not abolish that status for black people or for brown people. It's to abolish it for everyone. Now, that would abolish it for Australian migrants, Polish migrants, French migrants, American migrants, African migrants. I mean, that is it's lots of things. You could say it's a bad policy, that it's a terrible policy, that it would rip people away from this country and all the rest of it. But why is it a racist policy?
Well, because it would also apply to Indian migrants, Bangladeshi migrants, Pakistani migrants in my old Leicester constituency, for example, many of whom work in the National Health Service.
But it would apply to everyone. But it would apply to everyone. It's not targeting one race. To me, correct me if maybe I have a very different perception of what the word racist means than you do. To me, the word racist...
No, you don't. We're not in the debating society. We're not in the Durham Union now, Tom. Look, I understand the point that you are making, but there is a fear that when people talk about these issues in public debate, there is a fear that really what is being said is targeting particular communities. That's the worry about it, and I think it's in that context. But you're right, of course. The immigration rules do apply to everybody from countries all across the world who have come to make a life in the United Kingdom. And the issue for me, actually, by the way, is I know from my time as a Shadow Health Secretary that our health service utterly relies on workers from across the world. Now, we can have a debate about why we're not training more of our medics, more of our clinicians. That's a very legitimate
that's a debate that we should probably have with the BMA.
Yes, it's a very legitimate debate to have. But the reality, as things are now, is that our NHS and social care services are utterly reliant on international workers. So are we really going to say to people, you can't carry on working in our NHS and caring for our sick and elderly? That's a debate I think this country politicians should engage in that.
But isn't it such a weighty word, the R word, racism? I mean, it carries so much venom and such weight that when the Prime Minister said it on Sunday, to some extent it opened the door, and then every other cabinet minister has been saying that same word in the context of the Reform Party. As you said at the start of this conversation, it's got more punchy.
Yeah, and look, I have a different approach to politics. I'm much more... I like to engage in robust, discussion on policy with my opponents, and I like to tease my opponents. But I think there's a difference between sort of gently mocking, using humour, and using very, very harsh language. But different politicians have different approaches.
Do you think the Prime Minister will use the word racist in his speech in just 5 minutes' time?
Oh gosh, I have no idea. Probably not, I suspect, but. Who knows? I'm not the speechwriter. I have been involved in writing speeches for Labour Prime Ministers, but not this one.
Right. Now, of course, this speech is a bit of a moment for the Prime Minister. It's very, very strange. Now, I've been to a lot of party conferences over the course of the last 10 years. I haven't been to a party conference where there's been a newly elected Prime Minister this soon afterwards facing questions over whether they'll be Prime Minister by the end of the Parliament. I mean, yes, I've been to conferences where that was all that was spoken about. I've been to Tory conferences in 2017, 2018, the Labour Party conference in 2019. I mean, all of these things are very, very strange and tend to come toward the end of someone's political time in high office. Why is it coming so soon here for Keir Starmer?
Because the opinion polls. Because Labour aren't doing well in the opinion polls. But I would argue that Labour had a shocking inheritance in 2024. The worst inheritance, I think, for any government since 1945. They weren't just my words, they were the words of Simon Case, the former Cabinet Secretary. Actually said it on the podcast I host with Gloria Di Piero. So I think the government have got a tricky situation.
Worse than 1979?
That's what Simon Case said, so take it up with him.
I might have to.
Yeah,
we'll get him on the show.
Take it up with Simon Case. But, you know, it's challenging times, and the British public are hungry for urgent change. But this government has got 3.5 years or so to deliver that change. So I would just say to everybody, look, yes, the opinion polls are bad, but there isn't a general election until 2029. So let's see where we are then.
Now, in Tony Blair's autobiography, the one criticism he sort of makes of himself, actually he makes lots of criticisms of himself, one of the ones that I think is most memorable is he said, he wished he did more sooner. The biggest regret, I think he said, in power was not doing more sooner, that his first term he didn't get enough done, didn't do the economic reform that he wanted to do, left too much too late. I mean, given how many people were in and around the Blair era of government are around Keir Starmer now, or were around Keir Starmer when he was first in office, why did he make exactly that same mistake? You're sitting here telling me we've got big things to do, we've got to go further, we've got to go faster. I mean, what have you been doing for 14 months?
Well, I'm not a member of this cabinet.
Maybe if you were, it would have gone faster.
The good people of Leicester South had different plans for me. But I would just say this to my colleagues in cabinet if they're watching me. You've got 36 months. The next 36 months are critical. By the time we come here and we're sat here at Labour Conference 2028, it's too late then. That's basically the launch of a general election campaign. If you want to get anything done, it's the next 3 years. And that also means it's got to be done in the next 18 months, realistically. So these are a critical 36 months for the prospects of this government. So I'd say to Wes Streeting, to Rachel Reeves, to Bridget Phillips and all of that top team, you've got to get on with it.
And does that mean stop squabbling and posturing? And I mean, how many of these people are making big speeches on that stage that's just over there? How many of them are making these big speeches thinking, I wish I had the slot that's actually 2 p.m. today rather than 11 o'clock?
Well, they'll obviously tell you that they're all very happy with their station in life.
Of course they will.
But politicians have always got an eye on a bigger prize.
Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. It's so interesting when you can sort of have this bird eye view saying, they've really got to think about the job, get on with the job, do things. But, I mean, we both know a lot of the people sitting around that cabinet table will be thinking not just about what they're doing for the country, but where's next for their own career.
Yeah, but that's politics. That's life. You may be thinking, well, one day are you going to be the political editor, not the deputy political editor? It's just life. People always think about their next step, but they'll only be successful in making that next step if they deliver on their agenda now. And they've got to start, as I say, these next 36 months are critical, and really it's the next 18 months. If they want to get plans in place, do the next 18 months, and the second half of the 3 years is about making sure those plans deliver.
Why do you think it's been so stuttering so far? I mean, it's the number of ministers who've lost their jobs, but also the number of people in number 10, the first chief of staff, the director of communications, so many behind the scenes jobs that have gone that perhaps people out there in the country wouldn't really have noticed so much, but people in Westminster really do. It seems like it's been quite chaotic, like the Prime Minister doesn't have a grip on management.
I don't think it's chaotic as I think politics these days and the environment we're in. Look, by the way, let me just caveat this. I am not a politician who criticises the media. It is the world that we're in. Politicians who criticise the media are like sailors criticising the sea, right? It is the world we are in.
Yeah.
But I think the world of rolling news, social media, things get reported now, which when I started off in politics wouldn't hit the bar for getting in print, right? Because there's only there is limited space in print, yeah? So it now feels like everything's a frenzy, because every little comment gets sort of put on social media and all this happens. But you know, politicians have got to step back from that, and they've got to recognise that in the end, what they're going to be judged on is whether they can actually deliver on the policy portfolios they've got, whether that's the NHS or schools or the industrial strategy. And they've just got to step back, and they've got to discipline themselves to step back from all of that.
Does that argument work with, let's take the first big loss. This time last year at the Labour Party conference, everyone was talking about Sue Gray, the then Chief of Staff in Downing Street, who got sacked from her job, or did she say she resigned? I forget. Perhaps only a couple of weeks after that party conference. That wasn't to do with social media.
No. I'm not. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not blaming social. I'm just saying that sometimes things can feel so frenzied and frenetic in politics when actually, in the real world, you just need to be getting on with delivering and focusing on the policies and making sure your policies deliver. I think politicians can sometimes get too distracted by this frenzy. Yeah. And it's almost like the talk is almost like as if there's a general election tomorrow. There isn't a general election tomorrow. Right? We've had all this talk at the beginning of the week about the King of the North coming down to challenge. No one's actually stepped back and said it's impossible to happen because Andy's not got a parliamentary constituency. He'd have to win a by-election, which is obviously very challenging for Labour at the moment. Then he'd have to get 80 MPs to challenge Keir Starmer. Then he'd have to win, and then he'd probably have to give the country a general election if he was made Prime Minister.
Well, not constitutionally,
no,
but
you know what I mean? I mean,
but isn't it fun? Because that's not the first time I've heard that list this weekend or this week. Because lots of people have been talking about that list, not least allies of Andy Burnham, who've briefed to the press that someone might be willing to give up their seat for Andy to stand in and then come into Parliament, riding in like a knight on shining armour.
Well, I've no idea who's briefed on either way, but I'm just saying it's all just frenzy. And reality is, this government doesn't need to go for a general election until 2029, and that means they've got to just focus on the next 3 years on sorting out the problems in the country.
Yeah. Now, I should say that the Prime Minister is due to speak any moment now. He will be introduced, interestingly, by the chair of the Hillsborough campaign, Margaret Aspinall. That's been something that's really meaningful here in Liverpool. The Prime Minister spent some time on the Hillsborough law. It's interesting to read about all of this, how personal this has been to the Prime Minister.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult not to be deeply moved by the struggle for justice that those families have been through. And this is about ensuring that there are duties of candour on public servants, that when something goes wrong, that public servants involved in that have to be honest with the relevant inquiries and authorities so we can get to the bottom of why something has gone on. So it's a very important piece of legislation, potentially a very far-reaching piece of legislation as well.
Well, I'm being told that Margaret is actually stepping out onto stage now. Let's listen in to what Margaret Aspinall has to say ahead of the Prime Minister.
My name is Margaret Aspinall, and I lost my 18-year-old son at Hillsborough. And I'm here to explain why Hillsborough law is so important. I went to London to a family listening day, and I met so many wonderful people who are suffering and still suffering to this day because of an injustice that happened to them. And each and every one of them are important. They're as important as we fight for justice, for the truth. But can I say to all of you, cover-ups have been going on for centuries, for decades. It's been going on pre-Hillsborough, since Hillsborough, even to this day. You look at all of them campaigns that Charlotte mentioned only on Sunday. I will not repeat them. Charlotte done a good job and mentioned them. But it's important. I do not speak on behalf of any family. I do not speak on behalf of my own family. I am speaking about a Hillsborough law that is so passionate to me, and I'm so determined for the nation, for the good of the ordinary people of this country. A bad law. That law has been there for all of them years, and nothing has been done about it. But alongside so many good people, the people who are in the Hillsborough Law campaign have done a marvellous job. The people who work alongside them, fantastic job. It's been a long journey. It's been a long, long journey. I've been campaigning alongside others for 30-odd years. I'm an old woman now, but I want to die knowing that we've changed a part of history. We've changed a law that was so corrupt, so long, for so many people, and we are determined on doing that. And if we do that, we've all got to be proud of ourselves. But I am no public speaker. I've never believed in doing scripts when I talk to people. I believe in speaking how I feel from the heart, how I feel about the ordinary people. We have had promises to us in the past, and it took an awful lot to try and trust people, especially MPs, and especially, may God forgive me for saying this, Prime Ministers. I've met a few Prime Ministers and I've been let down. They think they're giving you something, you walk away, think we're getting somewhere. No, we didn't. But I can honest to God say, I've met one Prime Minister in the past who was true to her word and kept her promise. Today, I've got to be truthful. I've met a Prime Minister who's kept his promise. This law will help so many people in the future. I hope nobody needs it. We pray nobody needs it, but if they do, this law will help those people. They will never have to go away from here, campaign for truth, campaign for justice, campaign against the media. We've had to do all of that, and that is so wrong, and that was what was... I can honestly, I'm going to say it how it is. I've got to. I've just got to. I've got to be true to myself. I've got to be true. "97 people were unlawfully killed, and the perpetrators walked away scot-free. How can that be in 2025? How can that happen? So what this law is about, this will make, no matter what job you are, what position you are, what rank you are, there's consequences if you tell lies. There's consequences. That law will change things for the good of the nation, but also make it a level playing field for the ordinary people. If they get paid by the state, the ordinary people get the same. Simple, simple, simple. And those MPs who supported this, I thank you all so much. Those MPs who might be against it, shame on you. Shame on you. This law is for the people, by the people, and that's what this is about. So if I may, I now would like to thank the Prime Minister. I would like to thank the Prime Minister. I met the Prime Minister when he was the DPP. I met him when he was the leader of the opposition. And I asked him then, would you promise me that if you become Prime Minister, that will you give a Hillsborough law for the ordinary people? He promised me that. I've met him numerous times. He phoned me up privately and told me, Margaret, there will be a Hillsborough law. He's kept his word. He's kept his word. It wasn't easy. He promised it would be on the 15th of April. Unfortunately, it wasn't a Hillsborough law by the 15th of April. There was things getting watered down. We don't want anything watered down. I want a Hillsborough law in all its entirety. That is so important. The Prime Minister didn't have an easy time to get it. We've still got work to do. We've got good people behind us who will be watching and making sure that we get it in its entirety. So I thank for what we've got so far. I'm very, very grateful, and I thank the Prime Minister for listening and keeping his word. And if I may now, I'd like to introduce you to your Prime Minister, Mr. Keir Starmer.
Well, the crowd there is going absolutely wild for a speech that was really from the heart there. But let's listen in to what the Prime Minister has to say.
Thank you. Thank you, conference. Thank you, Figan. Thank you, Pooja, by leading by example, so powerfully showed just on that video just now. And Margaret, thank you so much for that introduction. I know it wasn't easy, even after the unimaginable loss of losing James, after all those obstacles deliberately put in your way. With this Hillsborough law, you and the other families, some of them are with us this afternoon, and other campaigners have served a degree of justice for James, for the 97, but also for thousands of people that you will never know and you will never meet, who will never now have to go through what you went through. Thank you. Thank you. Margaret, I remember meeting you and some of the other families nearly 15 years ago now with Bishop James Jones. I was humbled to be able to campaign after such loss. As a father of a daughter aged 14 and a son aged 17 who goes to football with me, 1 year younger than James was, I honestly don't think I would have the courage to do what you have all done. I was also struck at that first meeting by meeting some family members who had never felt able to talk about what happened that day. Perhaps because they feared that people like them would never be heard. Conference, this party was founded to hear working class people like that, to look directly into the eyes of their suffering, even when the state turns its back. And so the Hillsborough Law is not just a promise delivered, it is also a recognition that whether it's Hillsborough, Grenfell, Windrush, Horizon, the grooming gangs, infected blood, and so many more, the British state consistently refused to see injustice because of who the victims are. Because they're working class, they're black, they're women and girls. And so, Margaret, I know we can never undo the pain for you and all the other families. But we can show that in the Britain that we are building, the state will see, the state will listen, the state will be accountable to working people, because now injustice has no place to hide. That's National Renewal Conference, government and working people working together to drag us out of decline, building a new Britain. Now, it's an urgent task. We can all see that the country faces a choice, a defining choice. Britain stands at a fork in the road. We can choose decency, or we can choose division, renewal or decline. A country proud of its values, in control of its future, or one that succumbs against the grain of our history to the politics of grievance. It is a test, a fight for the soul of our country, every bit as big as rebuilding Britain after the war, and we must all rise to this challenge. Yet we need to be clear that our path, the path of renewal, it's long, it's difficult, it requires decisions that are not cost-free or easy, decisions that will not always be comfortable for our party. Yet at the end of this hard road, there will be a new country, a fairer country, a land of dignity and respect, everyone seen, everyone valued, wealth creation in every single community, working people in control of their public services, the mindless bureaucracy that chokes enterprise removed so we can build and keep building, clean British energy powering our homes, technology harnessed to drive us forward, our flags flying proudly as we celebrate difference and oppose racism. Conference. Thank you, Conference. The basic, ordinary hope of a better future for our children restored for millions. And through that, a Britain that has rediscovered the belief, the togetherness, the pride to take control of its future. That's what we're building, Conference. That's national renewal, a Britain built for all. But there is another path. We can call it the path of decline. But in truth, it leads to ruin, to chaos, to Britain being poorer in every sense. And it's a tempting path because it asks nothing of people, makes no demands, suggests no difficulties. All you need to do is listen to politicians who tell you there's a quick fix, a miracle cure, tax cuts that magically pay for themselves, a wealth tax that somehow solves every problem. The Brexit lies on the side of that bus. Click here for your new country. We can all see these snake oil merchants on the right, on the left, but be in no doubt conference, none of them have any interest in national renewal, because decline is good for their business. I mean, think about it. When was the last time that you heard Nigel Farage say anything positive about Britain's future? He can't. He doesn't like Britain, doesn't believe in Britain, wants you to doubt it just as much as he does. So he resorts to grievance. They all do. They want to turn this country, this proud, self-reliant country, into a competition of victims, saying to you, to working people, don't trust in each other. You can't fix this. This is not a great country. But it is, conference. It is a great country. It will always be a great country, a decent, pragmatic, tolerant, reasonable country that throughout history has stood its ground, stuck by its values, and built its future without fuss. That's the Britain I'm fighting for, conference, a nation of resolve, a land of respect, a Britain built for all. And conference, I welcome the new US initiative to bring peace to the Middle East. I strongly support efforts to end the fighting, release every hostage, and urgently scale up aid into Gaza. All sides must now come together to bring this initiative into reality, because we must restart the hope of a two-state solution, a safe and secure Israel, alongside the long-promised Palestinian state, a state that this country now recognizes. Conference. Thank you, conference. Thank you. Conference, I will never give up on diplomacy, and I will never doubt British values, rules that protect those in need, respect for difference under the same flag, the freedom to live and let live. I will never doubt that these values make us strong in a world that preys on weakness. How could I? The progress, the prosperity, the peace I've seen throughout my life, the journey I've been on, from a working class background to this. I owe everything to this country and its values. But working people, they're losing faith. They're ground down. Politics has made them question Britain. And can you blame them? They've been nothing but patient. They lived through austerity, Brexit, COVID, played by the rules, kept their side of the bargain. But time and again, politics ducked the challenge of renewal. Their high street, their pubs, their youth clubs, the places that shape a life, that create a common memory, struggling against the tide of decline. That is why we must never find ourselves defending a status quo that manifestly failed working people. That's what I say to people who think it would be nice if we could just go back to politics before Brexit or the crash. And this does go back that far, conference. The global financial crisis is when we were exposed, when a new Britain should have been born. Complacent. That's the only way to describe it. Complacent. We place too much faith in globalization, the establishment across so many institutions, in hock to its lazy assumptions that immigration is all we need to give us the workers. Infrastructure will always be there because we built it decades ago. the world always on hand to give us the goods. It doesn't matter if our industry leaves. Doesn't matter if we don't train our young people. Doesn't matter if wealth creation is hoarded by just a few communities. Well, conference, look at our world now. Because in our age of insecurity, we can see now that it does matter. We do need to put our security first. We do need to unlock the potential of every community. We do need a more muscular state, freed from the red tape that stops us building, growing our economy from the grassroots, renewing every town and city on these islands. It comes back to growth. So much of it comes back to economic growth. In fact, I'll say it now so there's no doubt, the defining mission of this government is to grow the economy, improve living standards, and change the way we create wealth. An economy that grows not just from the top, but from the grassroots, because growth is the pound in your pocket. It is more money for trips, meals out, the little things that bring joy to our lives, the peace of mind that comes from economic security. But it is also the antidote to division. That's the most important aspect of national renewal. The way you grow an economy, not just how much, but who and where benefits, that can either build a nation or it can pull it apart. And in the world we must face, the threats we must defeat, Britain needs an economy that unites. Every person, every community, every great nation on these islands standing together, as so often in our past, facing down the threats of a volatile world. And it is a choice. You can exploit asset bubbles to distract from stagnating wages. You can balance the books by cutting long-term investment. You can cut taxes for the few whilst dismantling the infrastructure for the many. But the affordable homes that we built, the libraries that we opened, the Shore Start centres that gave so many families a better start in life, all in it together. That's what they said. Come on. The country they created, it's still around us today. Old and young, north and south, scrapping over the crumbs, draining the well of responsibility, the patriotic responsibility that we owe to one another. But there's another choice, conference. You can choose industrial policy, government and business bringing the future closer, British graft backed everywhere, from the steelworks in Scunthorpe to the data centres in Essex and the wind farms of South Wales. You can choose to unleash British enterprise, strip out bad regulation, confront the blockers that strangle a thriving private sector. The most important thing we need for every community to stand more proudly on their own feet. You can choose to challenge the outdated dogma and say with one clear voice that public investment does not crowd out private, that we should invest more outside London and the South East, and that a more secure labour market with stronger workers' rights will be better for productivity. And conference, you can choose to rebuild our public services, choose investment over austerity. That's the choice we made at the last budget. A hard choice, difficult decisions on taxation, but conference, that's the choice that we made. Now, I want to thank every business in our country on this issue. We asked a lot at the last budget. I know that. I do think, in the long run, fixing our public finances, investing in new infrastructure, helping our public services off their knees, that will be better for growth. But equally important, because of your contribution, we've taken a huge step on the path of renewal, a firmer foundation to take our country forward. more security, more respect, more opportunity. A Britain built for all. A Britain built for all. Every decision conference, every decision we took this past year, it's all been in pursuit of that mission. Changing the way we create wealth, reforming public services, giving people more control over our future. Take our investment in defence. Undeniably good for growth, vital for national security and the whole of the continent. Impossible without really tough decisions on aid. Just look at the New Deal to build Norwegian frigates. That doesn't happen without our investment. A decade of shipbuilding on the Clyde. That heritage, that pride, secure for future generations. Now, those frigates could have been built anywhere, but that was the old mentality, that it didn't matter. But we want to build them here, in Britain. We want to invest in that reputation, in those skills, in the talent of Glasgow and the Clyde. Now, conference. 5 days after that deal, I went to the shipbuilding yard on the Clyde. I went to the canteen where the workers were having their lunch. And I stood in front of them and I said, thank you. Thank you for your hard work and your reputation that allowed us to win that deal. They were being judged against other countries, France, Germany, and the US, and they won. They were proud. They said to me that this was the answer to the mantra that they heard. People who said British shipbuilding was dead. They told me how much it meant to them and their communities. And they were proud because they knew exactly what those frigates were for. And they were proud to contribute, proud that their community was chosen by an ally looking for a partner to defend our continent from Putin's aggression. And conference. Or take our investment in childcare. 30 hours free for every child between 9 months and 4 years. A massive difference to the cost of living. Thousands of pounds back in the pockets of working parents because we made tough decisions, tough Labour decisions at the last budget. Now, this will help parents and carers back to work, especially women, and that is good for growth. But fundamentally, it's for the children. Now, last year, Bridget and I went to a primary school in Nuneaton, and we got talking to the reception teacher. And she said that some kids arrive in reception reading books, others are still virtually in nappies. There's similar stories right across the country. Inequality at age just 4, baked in for life. So our childcare provision is a game changer, giving every child the best start in life, every single child equal at the starting line of their education. That's National Renewal Conference. That's why we made the tough decisions. And I make no apologies if they tilt towards working people, because it's working people who paid the price of Tory decline. That's why we invested in our NHS, fired up Great British Energy, stood up for British Steel, new protectors for renters, sick pay for the least well-off, fire and rehire finished, 0-hour contract scrapped, record investment in Scotland and Wales, rebuilding our schools, new homes, new towns, new train lines, publicly owned of course, spreading prosperity right across Britain. And a proper living wage conference, the culmination of a long journey for our movement, a mark of a Britain built for all. Thank you, Conference. And Conference, extending free school meals, 100,000 children lifted out of poverty. The first step on our journey to end child poverty. We have walked that road before and we will walk that road again. Because a Britain where no child is hungry, where no child is held back by poverty, that's a Britain built for all. But there's another cause that we must also take up, Conference. It strikes to the heart of what we stand for and who commands our respect. People like my dad. I think by now you know what he did for a living. But then again, do you? Do you really know the skill, the craft, the precision that goes into tool making? Now, But the thing is, Conference, the thing is, he always felt disrespected, my dad, undervalued by the nation because he worked with his hands. And I can see why. He worked hours and hours at night school when he was an apprentice. I went to Leeds University, had a good time. It's a good place to have a good time, is Leeds. And then when I came back, I officially became the first in my family to go to university. I was put on that pedestal. Working class families know exactly what I mean. I thought about this when I visited those frigates on the Clyde. The apprentices there, they took me on board. They showed me how they were rewiring it. Miles and miles of wire, difficult, high-skilled work, really complicated, and of course vital for our country. I thought about my sister, a care worker. She works with adults with Down syndrome. It's amazing work. I know I could never do it in the way that she does. Also vital for our country. And then I think about my brother. He was failed. He had difficulties learning. He was badly failed by the education system. He was put to one side, barely even seen. Our Conference, some politicians say, I want every child to have the same opportunities that I had. You hear a lot of that in Westminster. But that's not me. No, what I want is a Britain where people are treated with the dignity that they deserve for making different choices, choices our country needs, choices we should value, choices that deserve our respect. And so, Conference, while you will never hear me denigrate the aspiration to go to university, I don't think the way we currently measure success in education, that ambition to get 50% of kids to uni, I don't think that's right for our times. Because if you're a kid or a parent of a kid who chooses an apprenticeship, what does it say to you? Do we genuinely, as a country, afford them the same respect? Because we should, but I can't help feeling that my dad was right. So, Conference, today I can announce we will scrap that target and replace it with a new ambition that 2/3 of our children should go either to university or take a gold standard apprenticeship. Thank you, Conference. Thank you. Thank you, Conference. Thank you. I can also announce that further education, so long as Cinderella service, ignored because politicians' kids don't go there, we will make it a defining cause of this Labour government, with higher standards in every college, the quality of teaching raised, more apprenticeships, more technical colleges, technical excellent colleges, qualifications linked to jobs, rooted in their communities. And as Rachel announced yesterday, a new guarantee, training, work support or an apprenticeship for every young person struggling to find work. That's young people back, the class ceiling smashed, the grafters finally included in our country's highest aspiration. That's national renewal, that's a Britain built for all. That's what I stand for, conference. And let me tell you, I also know what I stand against. And I have had enough of lectures from self-appointed champions of working people who want to shred our public service, level down workers' rights, crash the economy like Liz Truss. Politicians who lied to this country, unleashed chaos, and walked away after Brexit, who equivocate of Putin in Ukraine, who even now go to America and grub around for money, talking this great country down. No. No more lectures from them. Because Labour is the party for working people. Labour is the party for national renewal. Labour is the patriotic party. Let me take you back to 1996, Wembley, the old Wembley actually. I was there. It was that semi-final. Electric. We're all singing with one voice. Football's coming home. Now, of course, it didn't actually come home. No cheering at us. But you know, it did feel like something was stirring in England that evening. An England that belonged to our grandparents and our history, but also to our children and our future. North and south, black and white, old and young, an England united by a flag that stood for all. Now, I'm not going to pretend I would enjoy it if England lost to Scotland or Wales. The Union does have some limits. But I can say I'm not just proud of the Union Jack and the Cross of St George, I'm also proud of the Saltire, of the Red Dragon, proud of our Union, the astonishing relationship between our four great nations. Four different nations, yes, but four nations that time and again have been through fire together, built so much together, a country forged by the solidarity of working people. So let's fly all our flags, conference, because they're our flags. They belong to all of us, and we will never surrender them. Let us unite our country behind them. Because this is no time for dividers. This is the time for bringing the whole country together. That is how we will fight next year's elections as patriots of our great nations. That's who we are. That's who Eleanor is, who Anas is, what we stand for. A campaign to renew Wales, renew Scotland and renew Britain. But then that's just the point. Because for me, patriotism is about love and pride, about serving an interest that is more than yourself, a common good. And the question I ask seriously of Nigel Farage and Reform is, do they love our country? Do they want to serve our country, all of it, our beautiful, tolerant, diverse country, every region, nation and city? Or do they just want to stir the pot of division because that works in their interests? Do they truly believe in our potential, in our brilliance, in all the innovative wonders of our economy, from clean energy to creative arts? Or if a business looks a little too modern, do they say, as Farage said about Jaguar Land Rover, they deserve to go bust? And conference, when push comes to shove, do they really want to fix our problems and renew Britain? Or, as we've seen time and again, whether it's the SNP, the extremes of the left, or Reform and the Tories now, do they actually want Britain to fail? I think we know the answer to that question. So let me say this, because whilst we must come together to fight reform with everything that this movement has, we must go into that battle armed, not just with words and condemnation, but with action. And that means tackling all the problems that they prey upon. All the problems. Now, soon after I became an MP, I went to Oldham for a by-election up there. I was taken to a street to meet a woman who I was told had strong views on immigration. I knocked on the door. She invited me in. We had a cup of tea and a rich tea biscuit. And then, as we sat there, she got her photo album out and showed me pictures of her at the wedding of her Asian neighbour. She was proud that she was her neighbour and her friend. Now, I'm not the most patient person, as anybody in my family will tell you. And I started thinking, what is going on here? And then we finally got to it. She told me that a group of men from Eastern Europe had recently moved into her street. They sat on her wall, didn't put their rubbish out at the right time, and spat on the ground. To her, that broke the little but important rules of her street. She didn't like it. Then I realised what was really happening. And conference, what was really happening is that she, an ordinary working-class woman from Oldham, a Labour voter, felt that she had to prove to a Labour politician that she wasn't racist before she could even bring up the issues in her community. Now, I've carried that with me through all the bad years, conference. Whatever our intentions, we had become a party that patronised working people. And that is why we changed the party. Yet, conference, there are still some people who can't listen in good faith on this issue, who say we can ignore the crisis and our asylum system so long as we get the economy moving. I have to say to those people very directly, we will tackle this issue. The British people are not unreasonable. They're pragmatic, compassionate, tolerant. That's who we are. What people want from politics, that hasn't changed. They want more cash in their pockets, safer streets, opportunities for their children, and an NHS that's fit for the future. And yes, they want secure borders. And that is a reasonable demand. Now, we should always say plainly and with pride that asylum for people genuinely fleeing persecution is the mark of a decent, compassionate country. But secure borders are also vital for a decent, compassionate country. Controlling who comes here is an essential task of government. And there's nothing compassionate or progressive in a vile trade that loads people into overcrowded boats, puts them in grave danger in the Channel, and ultimately exploits human desperation and hope. So mark my words, we will stop this, we will smash the gangs, we will crack down on illegal working, we will remove people with no right to be here, and we will secure Britain's borders. But there is a line, a moral line. And it isn't just Farage who crosses it. There are also people who should know better, sowing fear and discord across our country. And then when we call it out, they pretend that we're criticising reasonable concerns about immigration. We have seen that trick conference. So let us spell it out once and for all. Controlling migration is a reasonable goal. But if you throw bricks and smash up private property, that's not legitimate, that is thuggery. Thank you, Conference. Free speech, free speech. Free speech is a British value and we have guarded it for centuries. But if you incite racist violence and hatred, that is not expressing concern, it's criminal. And this party, this great party, is proud of our flags. Yet if they're painted alongside graffiti, telling a Chinese takeaway owner to go home, that's not pride, that's racism. And Conference. If you say or imply that people cannot be English or British because of the colour of their skin, that mixed heritage families owe you an explanation, that people who've lived here for generations, raised their children here, built their lives here, working in our schools, our hospitals, running businesses, are our neighbours. If you say they should now be deported, then mark my words, we will fight you with everything we have, because you are the enemy of national renewal. And it will be a fight, Conference. It doesn't get easier from here. And the tough decisions, they will keep on coming. Look, we inherited public finances where the Tories piled up mountains of debt with next to no boost in productivity to show for it. Unprecedented. And in a world as volatile as ours, that's dangerous. It demands firm and fair decisions to control our debt. Now, this is the responsibility of government. I don't complain about it. I expect to be judged on my ability to deal with it. But it does mean that national renewal takes time, that it requires patience as well as courage, a determination never to risk economic stability. That solemn promise that we made to working people, our mandate, line 1 of our pledge card. Now, I acknowledge the temptation. You can see it all around the world. A desire to avoid reality, to neglect the long term, cast off the constraints and indulge in ideological fantasy. That's what happened with Liz Truss. But it does not matter if it's unfunded tax cuts or unfunded spending. The result is the same. You lose control of the economy, and working people pay the price. And I will never let that happen again. I will never let that happen to working people with Labour. That is why we changed the party. Because a Labour Party that cannot control spending is a Labour Party that cannot govern in our times. Not with an ageing society, not with climate change, and not with the global cost of borrowing as it is now. And that is why the fiscal rules are non-negotiable. This isn't a game, it's not a tactic. Those rules protect working people, they protect our children's future. That's why our approach has always been more ambitious. National renewal isn't just moving money around, it's completely rewiring the state and the economy, unlocking the potential of everyone on these islands. On the economy, that's about understanding that proud working class towns, they want to be backed by investment, of course they do. But they don't want to rely on handouts or help. They want more power and control, more wealth creation in their community. That's how they stand on their own feet as proud partners in this project of our nation. And on the state, it's about understanding the opportunity of public service reform. That if we show people the respect that they deserve, if we give people more agency over the state, see them as our partners, then together we can take control of our future. We can live in a Britain built for all. Take our NHS. I know how hard people work in our NHS. I see it in my family and I celebrate it at every opportunity. But the responsibility of this party is not just to celebrate the NHS, it is to make it better. And in decades to come, I want people to look back on this moment as the moment we renewed the NHS for a new world, just as we look back on that great Labour government after the war. Because, conference, a new world is coming. Artificial intelligence is transforming healthcare. I've seen it for myself. I've spoken to patients alive because of it. Stroke patients, where the precise location of a blood clot is identified in milliseconds. Disease is changing too, and with an older society, more people who have long-term conditions, we need to put patients in control of their health, shift care closer to their lives, and put technology in their hands at their service. And that's what we're doing right across our NHS. But we have to keep up the pace. I've been there before, I know what it's like. If you stand still on public service reform, you do end up going backwards. So today, conference, we move forward. Every day the NHS delivers countless appointments. And for the vast majority, a face-to-face consultation is right, and we will never take that away from those who want it. But think about a single mum juggling kids and work, trying to find time to speak to a specialist. Or someone in their later years living in a rural community, miles from a hospital, who needs a checkup for a suspected eye condition. Why not have a doctor see you at home, in your living room, on an iPad, talking to you? No queues, no 3-hour bus trip, no cancellation letters arriving after the appointment date. Wouldn't that be good, conference? And not just the conference, the better care. Think about it. That person with the eye condition, she could access the top specialist in the country, even if she lived miles away. Care no longer tied to doctors in your local area, which means you can see someone more quickly, at a time that suits you. But also, the system can deliver more, much more, up to 8.5 million extra appointments. Imagine what that could do to waiting times. And now, conference, imagine no more. Because today I can announce a completely digital NHS Trust, NHS Online, that will offer millions of appointments, convenient appointments, appointments you choose, a new chapter in the story of our NHS, harnessing the future, patients in control, waiting times cut for every single person in the country. That's national renewal. That's a Britain built for all. Conference. Thank you, conference. That's why I just do not accept that Britain is broken. There are so many opportunities to make a difference. The energy of the future, we're backing it. Carbon capture here in Merseyside, the Celtic Freeport in South Wales, offshore wind turbines made and built in Humberside, brilliant scientists in the heart of Middle England developing nuclear fusion. Is that broken Britain, conference? Look at the investment. Tech companies queuing up to back this country, saying that we are indispensable for the AI future. Now, those companies can invest anywhere in the world, but they're choosing us. They're choosing Hartlepool, Warrington, Belfast, East Midlands. Is that broken Britain, conference? Those 3 trade deals we struck with India, with the US, with our fellow Europeans, a signal to the world that Britain is back, that stability has returned. Is that broken Britain, conference? Or our ironclad and never-wavering support for the brave people of Ukraine, the yellow and blue flag flying on churches and village halls, the length and breadth of the country. Is that broken Britain, conference? then conference, there's Melanie from Calderdale in West Yorkshire. She runs an organisation called Our Place. It's for carers and people cared for, or just people who are lonely, organising a couple of meetups a week. That doesn't sound like much, but for those people, it's everything. Is that broken Britain? Or take Caitlin, down here, just 15 years old from Barnet. Now, Caitlin, like me, loves football, but there was no girls' team at her school, so she set one up, the first of its kind. And now conference, she plays for Camden Town Women, and that's nearly as good as Arsenal. She coaches as well at Potter's Bar Little Lionesses, just 15 years old. Is that broken Britain? What about George here, who delivers food parcels in Telford with a smile? Debbie, who recycles school uniforms for hard-up parents in Halifax? Isaac, who scrubbed off that racist graffiti in York? The people who picked up the bricks and rubble in Southport? Alex, who raised money to rebuild the library in this city that was burnt down by thugs last year. Is that broken Britain, conference? Is this country of boundless creativity, of culture, history, music, art and sporting brilliance, of world-class educators, of fearless entrepreneurs, the grit of the Lionesses, the swagger of Oasis, the strength of the Red Roses, the beauty that stretches all the way from the south down to the Shetland Islands, a country that has weathered so many storms and never stopped building its future? Is that really broken conference, or can we renew it? Because conference. Thank you, conference. Because I'll tell you this, mere politics cannot break Britain, conference. It's not in its gift. And while you may not see them on social media, people like this, they are the real face of Britain. Painting a fence, running the raffle, cutting the half-time orange, or even that gentle knock on the door that checks that your neighbour is all right. That's real Britain, conference. Millions of people, miles away from Westminster, giving up their time, taking responsibility, making their community better. And so, conference, we will renew Britain with them. Because I've always said that people with skin in the game make the best decisions for their community. And so the money we invest in renewal, whether it's for youth clubs, peers, parks or chippies, we will give control, not to politicians, but to people, to those champions of national renewal. Because while I know nobody wants to hear this from a politician, the truth is we do all have a responsibility to change our country. There are limits to what the state can do on its own. In the end, we really are all in it together. Now, you will never hear that from the politicians of grievance, the attraction of unity. That's something they will never understand. They will never hold out their hand, as I do now, to people who may see the world differently, but put the progress of our country first. So if you are a patriot, whether you vote Labour or not, if you want to stand against grievance and renew Britain, then this is your fight too. Because even in a world this dangerous, I do think the politics of grievance is the biggest threat we face, because it attacks who we are, an attempt to turn us into a place where we look at our neighbours in our community, people who may or may not look different to us, and we no longer see them as fellow partners in the project of Britain. Now, the Tories, do you remember them? Conference? I don't know if they believed in grievance politics. Maybe they do now, when you see them turning away from the rule of law. It is honestly hard to tell. But one thing I do know, Conference, is that not once in 14 years did they ever properly stand up to it. But I will. I will fight with every breath I have. Fight for working people. Fight for the tolerant, decent, respectful Britain that I know. People say, Conference, that a nation like ours can't be a community, that it's too diverse, too divided. I reject that. That goes against everything I stand for, everything I've served, everything I understand about this great country that I love. So no matter how many people tell me that it can't be done, I believe Britain can come together, that we can pursue a shared destination, that we can unite around a common good. That is my ambition, the purpose of this government. End decline, reform our public services, grow our economy from the grassroots, and with resolve, with respect, with the flag in our hands, we will renew this country until we can say with total conviction that Britain is built for all. Thank you, Conference. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Conference. Fly those flags. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome to the Martin Daubner Show. That was Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, fighting for his political life, many believe, giving his keynote speech, closing speech there at the Labour Party conference in Liverpool. A Britain built for all. Everybody, it seems, except Nigel Farage, who was mentioned, by my reckoning, 8 times in that speech, the snake oil salesman who doesn't even like this country. Astonishing attack on Nigel Farage. Let's go to Chris Hope, our man in the room there. Chris, you're there on the ground. What's the mood?
Well, Martin, you heard there, this is the PM wrapping himself with the patriotic flag. I'm just going to get hold of Siobhan Mahmood.
We claim our flag to talk about the country that we all know we are, the country that we can all be proud of, and to make it really clear what the dividing line is between those who want to tear our country apart and those who want to bring the country
did he do
together.
enough to turn the narrative around?
Yeah, look, I think he made a really big pitch to the country about the sort of country we're trying to build, the country that we believe in, a Britain that is built for everybody, that we see a home here for people, that we want to deliver for everyone all across the country.
Final question. Do you think he was calling Andy Burnham a snake oil salesman just then? That sounded like the hint at very the end.
Oh, I'm not going to get into that. Thank you for trying, but no, he was making a pitch to the country, and I think that's really important.
Siobhan, you're live on GB News. Can you stop the boats? He said you will have to stop the boats. Can you do it?
Try not to get caught up in your camera. Yes, of course. Look, I know I've come into this job with one mission. I've got to secure our borders. That means stopping those boats and dealing with illegal migration, dealing with legal migration as well, which is what I spoke about in my speech yesterday. And I think you've heard from the Prime Minister today. We believe in an open, tolerant and generous country. That is the country that we believe in, that we're going to create, that we're going to deliver for the people of this country.
Are you comfortable with your leader describing Nigel Farage's policies as racist? That means the people who vote reform are racist, right?
No, what the Prime Minister was calling out was actually something that I think is worse than racism. Nigel Farage knows what he's doing. He was putting forward a policy that I think is immoral. I think it's not a policy that the British people will stand for, because he's saying that people who have made their life here, who played by all of our rules, who've done the right thing, potentially have no place in this country under a leadership like his. And what Keir has made clear is if you play by the rules, you're here perfectly legally, you've done everything we've ever asked of you, you belong here, you're one of us, and your place in our country is protected. That is different to looking forwards and saying we might want to change the rules for how you become one of us in the future. But for everyone who's already part of our community, who already has indefinitely to remain, they have that right to remain.
Just final question, yes or no, will you stop the boats by the election?
Look, I've got one job, I'm going to secure our borders.
We'll talk again soon, thank you, thank you. Siobhan Mahmood there, Martin Daubner. Looking around here at my shoulder, who else might be? Rachel Reed is this way. Follow me now, Martin, let's get to her. Excuse me. Thank you. I can't go that way. Okay, so Rachel Reed is the Chancellor of the Exchequer. We're live on GB News, yeah. We're next now. There we go.
They've only just started, okay. I think it is right to call out policies when they're racist.
Martin, with Ed Miliband now. Ed Miliband, it's our annual interview with you, Chris Harwood, GB News. How do you find that then?
I thought it was a brilliant speech. I'm sure you did too. A clear message, Britain built for all, a clear pathway to that. Something I know Keir cares passionately about, which is the class ceiling in Britain, apprenticeships being valued equally with people going to university. I thought that was a great part of the speech, and taking the argument to reform that they won't solve the problems the country faces.
He spoke about muscular intervention. Why is Lindsay Oil Refinery going bust on your watch? 125 jobs have gone today. More will go in January. That's on your watch. You're in charge of this policy.
Well, look, what happened was that the private owner of the refinery ran it into the ground. We're continuing to look at all possible bids for Lindsay Oil Refinery, and so we will do everything we can to find a future for that site, and if it can be a going concern, it will.
But Scunthorpe was saved by your government. Why not save Lindsay?
Well, look, we look at all the options, Chris, but we've got people coming forward from the private sector who we hope will find a future for that site.
And just finally, you waving flags there. This party is patriotic now, isn't it?
100%, it always has been. It always has been a patriotic party, and patriotism is not owned by any one part of the political spectrum.
And what advice would you give Keir Starmer? He's on the floor in the polls. You're popular amongst members.
He doesn't need any advice.
Do you want to replace him?
He gave no, absolutely not. He gave a fantastic speech.
That's Ed Miliband. I'm just going to try and get back to Rachel Reeves, Martin, if you bear with me. 1 second, please. Forgive me. You're live on GB News. We're getting a queue. This way, I'll back up this way, thank you. So you heard there from Ed Miliband, clear that no problem here with patriotism, doesn't want to be leader, and we're all working on a solution for the oil workers at the Lindsay Oil Refinery. Of course, 125 jobs went today, 280 could go in January. But I was really struck by the way that the Prime Minister attempted to wrap himself in the Union flag to show that this party is the party of patriotism. We haven't seen that from Labour. I think that, in a sense, is Reform UK moving the dial, Martin, on what should be said now in politics. We're going to try and get towards Rachel Reeves. You can bear with me, Martin. Just with me. And here she is, Martin. I'll put my OK, here we go. This is Rachel Reeves speaking now as a Chancellor. 1 second there, Martin. Rachel Reeves, you're live on GB News. How was that speech for you?
A really powerful speech from the Prime Minister, rejecting the politics of grievance and setting out a positive vision for the future of our country. Some concrete policies as well. NHS online, those virtual hospital wards to give everybody, wherever they live in the country, access to the very best doctors and nurses. And also that commitment around apprenticeships. So instead of saying 50% of kids to go to university, 2/3 of kids at either university or a good apprenticeship, recognising the value of those trades and those skills.
You talked about tough choices coming up, headwinds, of course, in your speech yesterday. What does that mean for GB News viewers and listeners?
Well, look, anybody who watches the news, GB News or other channels, can see that the world has changed an awful lot in the last few months. The damage also done to our economy by the previous government is becoming ever clearer. But we'll make those choices in Labour ways, and as Keir said, the number one mission of this government is to grow the economy, to put more pounds in people's pockets, and so we can properly fund our services like the NHS.
And tough choices, VAT on private healthcare?
No, I think Wes was very clear about that earlier today.
Thank you, Rachel Reeves. Thank you. Good to see you. Rachel Reeves there, very clear on the tough choices facing the country, of course, but nothing yet on the budget. I think, Martin, I've done all I can here. I'll just try and find other interviews to get back to you.
Superb stuff there, Chris. So getting straight in there to Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband and Rachel Reeves. As you said, Ed Miliband's annual interview on GB News. Thank you very much, Chris. We'll come back to you when you grab some more of the Labour luminaires. Now let's get back to that Labour Party conference and join GB News' Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood. Tom, you've been valiantly there throughout the entire conference. You were in that room. What's your feeling on the ground? Certainly, once again, the spectre hovering over that auditorium was Nigel Farage.
Prime Minister aimed squarely at those voters who have abandoned the Labour Party and in the polls are moving towards Reform UK. I'm delighted to be joined here by John Ashworth, former Shadow Cabinet Minister, and we've got our flags.
We certainly have.
And this is now a flag-waving party.
It's always been a flag-waving party. We've always been proud of the union. I still call it the Union Jack. I know people on Twitter will send me pedantic tweets about that.
Both are right. Both are okay.
Absolutely. But look, I think it's been... Keir Starmer's had a lot of criticism in recent years for not quite finding his voice in politics, even though he got a landslide victory. I think today Keir Starmer found his voice. I think he really, really passionately believes that he has a duty to bring the United Kingdom together, to be a father figure for the nation, standing up for what he thinks is very divisive politics coming from Nigel Farage. And I think that's what today's speech is all about. Very significant. The Tories just got a look in right at the end as a throwaway comment. So, significant speech. Some interesting policies in there around universities, NHS, the future of the NHS as well.
Was it a rejection of Blairism? Or a sort of embrace of Blairism? Because obviously Tony Blair's big thing was half the country going to university. And there was a huge, huge moment in that speech where Keir Starmer said, well, he was the only one in his family going to university. And to some extent, that target, that made his brother and his sister feel less worthwhile because they didn't go to university. Well, his sister's a carer. She has worth as a human being. That target instituted by Tony Blair, to some people, takes away from them.
Well, look, I was a working class person, the only working class person, the only person in my family to go to university, a very good university it was too, Durham, like you, Tom. And I think it's important that working class people are given the opportunity to go to university. So I've always actually liked that target. However, I've also been acutely aware that we have, as a country, as a government system, as Whitehall, has always been a bit dismissive of apprenticeships and other vocational routes. And we really need to give that route the status it deserves. And that's what he was trying to do today.
And it was interesting as well, this sort of leaning into the flag, the idea of an identity of what it means to be English, what it means to be British, Scottish, Welsh, or indeed Northern Irish. And talking about 1996 as that foundational moment, the Euro 96 campaign.
Very important year, 1996, as you know. But look, I think what he's trying to do is suggest that British values are about decency, they're about coming together, that there's so many amazing, extraordinary things going on in local communities all the time. And I'm a Mancunian. He also talks about the swagger of Oasis, so I like that line as well.
Something for everyone. Well, we're going to go back to Chopper now, who's got more cabinet ministers.
Reid, the Housing Secretary. Steve Reid, wave your flag.
Well, I'm delighted to wave yet again on GBNews waving a flag.
I'm off to,
These flags were not. These flags weren't GBNews supplied, were they? They were for you.
No, absolutely. But you know, this was about renewing our country, bringing our country back together again. That is patriotism in action. The alternative that Farage is offering is plastic patriotism, pulling the country apart, division, threatening to deport the people who have lived here and are settled here for years, working at NHS. How does that help anyone in Britain?
When will you start delivering on the promise? We heard the PM there again saying he will stop the boats. I've asked Shabana Mahmood when that can happen. She's the new Home Secretary. She can't say that. What GB News viewers and listeners, they want to see action, not talk.
Yeah, quite right. And they're right to demand that. And the Prime Minister said, you're not going to get all the change overnight, but we know things are changing already. We've already seen wages go up faster in 10 months with this government than in 10 years under the previous government.
That's a big cost to the bottom line. That's borrowing, isn't it?
No. That's wages going up because businesses are investing. Investment is coming in from abroad to this country. That's money in people's pockets. And at a time where you've got a cost of living crisis, getting money back into people's pockets and bank accounts is key. And as Keir pointed out, we've had over 4 million additional appointments in the NHS, cutting waiting lists. Now, we know we need to go further, but it's a start, isn't it? And we're on a journey to bringing this country back together again and renewing our public services.
Nigel Farage mentioned 3 times in the speech. Kevin Baird not a mention at all. The Tories only in passing. Do you worry worry you're putting a target on his back. It's a difficult time politically. You're naming him, you're talking about in his policies racist, we heard that from the PM at the weekend. You know, you're increasing the temperature of politics.
Politics is about choices. It always has been. And the choice at the next election will be between renewal with the Labour Party and the change that we're starting to see now will go even further, or division and decline with Nigel Farage. That will be the choice at the next election, and that is why the Prime Minister is pointing it out.
Steve Reid, thank you. Steve Reid, thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Always great to see that. Steve Reid, the Housing Secretary, Martin.
Thank you very much, Chris Hope. Another minister gets on your notch post, as it were. Shabana Mahmood, Ed Miliband, Rachel Reeves, and now Steve Reid. Thank you very, very much. Let's get back to the studio now for some reaction from a Conservative perspective. I'm delighted to say I'm joined by the former Conservative Immigration Minister and MP, Tom Pursglove. Tom, welcome to the studio. Good to see you. A pleasure to have your company. Can I get you listened to that entire speech there throughout Sir Keir Starmer. What was your standout messages? Again, I put it to you, the dominating force in that room seemed to be somebody who wasn't there, Nigel Farage.
I thought it was extraordinary in the sense that the speech was very clearly designed to keep peace within the Labour Party. And the Prime Minister is fighting for his political life. They've been at real pains to try and put Andy Burnham back in his box throughout the course of the week. And I just think that people at home will have thought that there was a disproportionate amount of time in there spent on attacking opponents rather than giving any real vision or policies about how they're going to improve people's day-to-day lives. I think it actually looked pretty desperate, to be perfectly honest with you. And I just think this constant refrain of attacking Nigel Farage personally is about the worst possible tactic that they could deploy. A bit like the Democrats under Hillary Clinton with the basket of deplorables phrase that was used. Actually, all you're doing is sending a message to voters who've got genuine concerns about issues like immigration that you are judged to be as deplorable as the people that you're inclined to vote for. I think that's a disastrous approach to take.
And Tom Pursglove, we are expecting Nigel Farage to blast back. He's come under all sorts of fire from all of the top table from the Labour Party. We're expecting that speech in around about 10 minutes' time. Stick with us here on GB News. Worth going over some of those comments. Worse than racist. That's what Shabana Mahmood said. A snake oil salesman, a con artist, Wes Streeting, a plastic patriot, Yvette Cooper, the biggest threat to our way of lives, Rachel Reeves. And again there, Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, said Nigel Farage doesn't even like our country. When was the last time you heard him say anything positive? He doesn't believe in Britain. They want to turn it into a competition of victims, which I found especially amusing because identity politics is the raison d'etre of the Labour Party. It's built on victimhood. It's built on division. I digress. Nigel Farage's speech is expected to talk about the ramping up of the rhetoric. Do you think we're straying into a toxic, potentially dangerous period in British politics?
I do actually think that politicians need to weigh their words really carefully and calibrate the things that they say, because this does inflame tensions. It doesn't help to actually agree on solutions to try and tackle the problems that voters face. And I just think, actually, it doesn't work. All this does, that sort of plastic patriot type language that's being used, all it does, I think, is acts as a recruiting sergeant to Nigel Farage and reform, pushes more voters in that direction. It's a completely harebrained, daft strategy. And there was a particular phrase that the Prime Minister used where he talked about, for example, enemies of national renewal. What are you saying? That anybody that dissents on particular areas of policy or offers critique or scrutiny, does that make you an enemy of national renewal? I personally believe very strongly in national renewal. It was something that I was very focused on in government and as a Member of Parliament in my old constituency. I think that actually national renewal is something we all want to see. That just is a false dividing line to be trying to draw and paint.
Tom, can I get your reaction to the sudden discovery of the Union flag, the St George's flag? Incredible scenes there, actually mirrored at the Liberal Democrat conference last week. We're seeing now almost a fight to be the most patriotic party, and yet today, Labour councils across the country are taking flags down from lampposts. They're saying it's an affront, an eyesore. There's a clear schizophrenia here, is there not, between wrapping yourselves on the flag on the national stage and perhaps most people might believe, secretly, being slightly ashamed of it.
I think there's an element of appearing disingenuous around this, isn't there? That if you're having to go to such great pains to name-check points in the speech for people to pull the flags out and to wave them around and for ministers and members of Parliament to be doing that once the speech is finished, I think voters out there will draw their own conclusions about the sincerity of that. Politicians should be proud of our country. Politicians should be proud of our flag. I thought, for example, actually, the point about immigration was an interesting one in that so much of what Keir Starmer said was caveated. It was almost apologising to the room for needing to be so robust in the use of language. By the way, I don't think the policy prescription that's being advanced means that the Home Secretary will get anywhere near smashing the gangs in the way that she alluded to Chris Hope that she would be able to by the next election. But it was very interesting that caveating of what he had to say around immigration, the policy just isn't up to the scale of the challenge.
OK, thank you very much, Tom. Now, bear with us. Nigel Farage is due to speak, we believe, in about 5 minutes' time. Before that, let's go now to conference and join the Labour MP for Hendon, and that's David Pinto-Dzyinski. David, welcome to the show. Pleasure to have your company. What are your thoughts on Sir Keir Starmer's performance there at conference?
In the hall. This is the Keir Starmer I have seen so many times behind the scenes. It's fantastic to see his impatience for change, the passion and his dedication to this country and to its renewal on show. And I think what we saw today was firstly not just a rehearsal and a review of the great changes Labour's already brought forward, not just our agenda going forward, but a clear challenge to the country and the clear choice for the country laid out between real patriotism with Labour, between real renewal with Labour, and with decline, and I'm afraid to say the fake patriotism of Nigel Farage. And I think that choice is ever clearer.
The Labour Party keep bandying about phrases like plastic patriotism, fake patriotism. What do you actually mean by that?
Well, sorry, I mean, let's be really clear. Nigel Farage is the man who got on a plane to fly to America to demand that they put trade sanctions on us that will cost each and every one of us £350. That's not real patriotism. That's doing the country down, and we see it time and time again from Reform. Yes, he did. Real patriotism is love for our country, is bringing us together and is exemplifying British values, the values of unity, the values of working together for a common purpose. We see it in Nigel Farage also saying that JLR should go bust rather than standing behind those hard-working workers. Not standing behind a British champion, a company that's taking British products out into the world. We see it every time he talks about his admiration for Vladimir Putin, not standing up for our values, not standing up for our national interests, but getting into bed with the enemies of